Hey, Zara, let me lay up. You're not. There we go. There we go.
Thank you.
No problem. Sorry about that. My
No, it
my
happens.
every time.
Yeah.
Every time. How are you doing?
Child, like you, fighting the system one day at a time, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How you holding up?
Pretty good. Quite literally, I was getting fielding phone calls. Like I'm trying to like
Oh, right now, of
reboot it,
course. Yeah, yeah,
and yeah, and then I got phone calls. So
yeah.
just get everything organized here. And let's make you big because I really don't need to be big.
Okay.
Nobody needs to see my face that much. There we go. There we go. There we go. I got the clicker.
Let me send this to someone. Hold on.
All right. Now I can send it out myself. Uh,
Okay, let's see. And then
oh,
I have it here. Okay.
man, I don't even know how to send it out anymore. They keep on moving stuff around on me.
Oh, damn. Is it
It's
like
okay. I
you
will.
update the app again, or is it even without even updating the app, stuff still moves?
No, I updated the app and made sure
Uh,
everything was updated.
right. And that's what causes
And
the
then
trouble, too.
I took a look at it. Everything was good. But I'll just share it out through my backup account because
Yeah.
the buttons are different when you're going live, right?
Yeah, of course.
Um,
Welcome, Kay.
hey, Kay. Kay, if you've got Sam on there, can you send it out to Sam? That would be great. Um,
Hi, Cal. Can you please bring him up too? Cal, I'm
yeah.
going to ask you
If
to participate in the conversation, please. I
yep.
need your allyship and your visibility. It's important.
Let's see. Oh, there we
Hi,
go.
Davina. Haven't talked to you in a while. Hopefully, you're well enough, all things considered.
That's how I can send it out.
Thank you for
Whew.
attending, Lyra, as well. Lyra, I know I have your consent with the previous homework because we still have to even go through all that because, content keeps spontaneously coming up. Do I have consent to share what was shared to me from Kay about the more recent homework and that too, right? Because there's older homework that was done, and then we had like newer stuff. I know I have consent for this one. Do I have consent for this one, the more recent one, Lyra? Well, no, no, no. You shared it to me, Kay. I'm asking Lyra, unless you're saying you're absolutely. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see anybody in the request yet.
Um, he's fixing something.
Oh, okay.
He's fixing a camera, he said. So just a moment.
Let
And
me see if I can
Pax,
get.
I know you share with me like the way you weren't able to get your biological needs met. So again, if you gotta just navigate stuff for your mental health and your brain health and all that, just let me know candidly so that I'm not pushing you in a way that's hurting you.
Yeah. I'll be in the background mostly. But definitely I can add in. I'm just.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. No. Where
Also,
is?
if anyone's giving coins and stuff, please don't do this for me. Either give them to Ren or Joker. Joker is in a dire situation, and I don't know if Joker will be here because of the dire straits in which Joker is in. But if Joker
Yeah.
does show up, huh?
we could even put Joker up on panel and just have them mute for the thing because they know they're probably unable to talk, and then they can get coins and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever coins you have, please do not give them to me. Ren and Joker are in much more immediate need.
Oh, here we go.
Aren't my rainbow nails fun?
They
I'm
are
so glad.
gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm really grateful people gave me money to get them for the speech at the Pride event. It was
Absolutely.
really fun. I think I'll, if I have the opportunity next year, I'd love to wear these again. They're really fun. So we're
They
gonna
are
wait
really fun.
a little longer just to see if one Joker or Ren shows up and just get them up here. I'll start like 47 and also see if we can get Cal up here. So
Yeah. I've also
who's
sent it out to
Ren?
Sam.
Is that Ren's? Okay, let's get that up on the text tag because if we spam it here,
Yeah, it's gonna get.
it's gonna get us flagged.
Yeah.
So we gotta do that like tag thing. I don't know how to do. I think you have to do it as a host.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Later, Davina, I can tell you. Hello, Celeste. I
Celeste.
also ended up reading the speech again last night, so I've done it. I've delivered it twice now to another event. And that was on Instagram. If you want to watch, it was recorded.
I can't.
We haven't been live for too long. We're going from 5:30 PDT to 8:30. You know, give or take.
You can't pin
So we're
comments
just.
when there are star comments in your live. Okay.
But how do we get the tag on the
Sticker?
screen? Yeah, with Ren's ka-ching information.
Yeah. Let me, because if you even say those words,
Yeah.
it gets it flagged. So let me take a look.
Yeah.
If I can find the sticker. Give me a moment. Stickers. Here we go.
And then I'll read it to you. Or is there a way I can just copy and paste it to you, or do you
Just
see
read it
it?
out to me.
Okay, so
but leave out the CA because they.
Yeah.
Is it all one word?
yeah, so RENEWED, and then capital B, capital R, capital U, capital H. It's all one word. Renewed
Okay.
bruh. And that is for
RENWED.
RENEWED.
RENEW. Okay, hang on.
ED, bruh. But the bruh is all capitalized.
Yeah. EW. Okay, somebody let me know if that sticker is correct. Give me just a second.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That looks right.
Hey, I did something.
Fabulous.
I'm gonna put it over top of my head. There we go.
Does anyone know
Ta-da.
Jokers by memory? Or
No,
can
I
look
can
up
only
Jokers?
do one sticker at a time.
Oh, well, okay. All right, it's good then.
And because that's all three, then that's a little bit easier.
Hello, thank you for saying hi. All right. Cal,
Celeste.
have you
Hi.
got it working yet? Cal is a white trans man I've met up here. I'll leave the rest of the details for him to consent to share, but
yeah, Celeste, I actually can. I can. I can definitely put my, if you want to make a background of everybody's, I can definitely set my backup up to come up.
He said he sent a request. Please add him up. It's
Okay.
Bagheera and Shrimp.
Okay.
Thank
Just
you.
take a look.
And then I'm going to start.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be working with Celeste on the back end to do that. So give me a minute. Perfect.
Okay.
Welcome.
Hi. Okay. Trying to get the.
Is Sam here? Is she here? I haven't seen her. I'm surprised.
No, I shared it out to her.
Yeah. Okay, but we've already delayed too long. I'm going to start. So I'm going to be reading something, Cal, and please do not interrupt me until it will be very clear when we're done because it's reading the intro and rules and expectations and all that. Sure, Lyra, I hear what you're saying. All right, I'm starting. This is an open letter of rage, opening myself the degrading pain of seeking still that neural path in the minds of others to experientially perceive me as human. To write the necessity of this sacrifice facing towards the transgender community tells a long history, a handed down belief that the true transgender community isn't, wasn't, and will never be Black. Hold on. Again, if there's any coins, please do not send them to me. Send them to Ren or Joker. Thank you. But I appreciate the gesture. In a subculture of outcasts, there too is still the same society, one of gleeful master and lowly slave. You have stolen my languages, generations of autonomy, the dignity of a respectable death, forced the horror of being birthed into the subjugation, but on it went. How still Black trans people fled chattel slavery and found themselves in unfreedom, unshackled, yet still captive in the colony you call home. Black trans people made a new language, a new scene, a world away, and you too stole that, saying that the very structure which makes you human, showing its cruelty towards you, permits you the moral crimes you commit. And this is the worst failure of understanding in the transgender community. You are a human being branded for deviancy for your gender expression, and me and mine are loathed subjects, further perversing ourselves. Black transgender people die because they are forced onto a planet and its white supremacist world which deems that Black self-determination ought to never exist. And you all have played your parts in this open colonial dominion. Do the neurons pass the voltage in such a winding way as to regard the anguish of this rageful writing? Or do the neural paths spark to avoid, deny, or dismiss this societal pathologizing? Rationally, I should be running away from you all, each in your inheritance of whiteness or permitted proximity to the white social structure. Rationally, there is not a generation of you that has shown the radical persistence and self-examination to create a world on this planet which meets what you say out loud, believe of yourself. And yet, here we are, the outcasts, the perverted slaves stuck in one category, gender deviant. You reach for the lipstick, the razor, the dress, or the blazer, yet I see the whip just the same behind the new gender adornment. You have changed, but remain no different in your character. Black transgender people made the world, the queer frame of reference in which you live and understand yourself. You have pillaged and colonized this world, and this is the core of my rage. You steal and forcibly shape to your use what my people make by the spirit fueled with the innocent will to live. You are the stewards, the representation of nothing, just violent consumers who weep that life is unfair over my people's bones, over my people's, with my people's language. This conversation is an insistence of me and mine in a new generation, colliding against queer complicity to genocide and racial caste. I interact with you with the love I have for my fellows to not be killed or neglected by your cold shoulder to atrophy and cease. As those in the transgender community, the gender diverse who do so without the fatal mark of Black and Indigenous skin, how will you meet my rage and my rational criticism? I know what you tell yourself, the same things you have for generations, which internally permit your extraction, theft, and pillaging. But when face to face with the branded, othered architects of the trans world, what will you do? Expectations and rules regarding conduct of this gathering. 1. The introduction will be read each session. Along with these expectations and rules, both are subject to change as I see fit. 2. This is a trans space for trans people to discuss racism, segregation, and interracial political formation within the trans community. We will acknowledge that trans includes a multitude of identities that span cultural context and unique gender expression. Ultimately, this is a space for gender variant people who see the anti-trans political sentiment and legislation as grave danger. This conversation will be centered within the United States and Canadian context, but others are welcome to join. 3. There may be some moderators who are not trans, but are trusted to help moderate racism within the space. Ideally, over time, trans people can be trusted in this role, but these shifts in people need to happen organically. 4. Black and Indigenous voices will always have priority. Racialization is a critical element of discussing and experiencing racism. Thus, we will prioritize based not only on ancestry, but also racialization, to oppose colorism and featureism. If any non-BIPOC trans people interrupt BIPOC trans people, they will have 2 strikes and then may ask to leave the conversation. 5. We will acknowledge our disabled peers by conversing one at a time. Currently, it will be myself and Trunco Pax who will update and determine chat order for now. The speaking one at a time ensures those with hearing or communication processing needs have the ability to follow along better and contribute to the conversation. A desire to communicate will be expressed by a hand emoji in chat or if verbally asked by a host to ask who wishes to speak next. 6. When you introduce yourself, you will be expected to present your age to verify you're an adult for TikTok, your race and ancestry, pronouns. You will be encouraged to also share your trans experience, male to female to male, non-binary, two-spirit, etc. Clarity is added here. White people can acknowledge their racial phenotype, but also share their ancestry. We want to have your full reference of existing. 7. Non-BIPOC people comparing their experience to anti-Blackness or anti-Indigenousness will not be tolerated. Appropriation of Black slang and AAVE will be addressed as it happens to stop the cultural theft. To be in this space is to acknowledge the fact that Black slave resistance and liberation being a critical element of making current LGBTQ plus culture, even if you're not aware how by historical details. 8. While myself and Trunco Pax are hosting the space, we hold the other BIPOC trans people are also leading voices in the conversation. Non-Black and Indigenous people will hold them in high regard. 9. This is not a safe space. This is a protective space for Black and Indigenous trans people. We are permitted, nor will we be restrained, expressing our experiences and emotions regarding colonization. For non-BIPOC people, you are expected to self-regulate, contact non-BIPOC peers for help self-regulating, and are doing emotional labor to validate Black and Indigenous peers. White centering and fragility will be addressed immediately. The captured culture already centers you every moment of every day. It is time to share. I am teaching on the unceded, stolen territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Pax wishes to say a land acknowledgement, and then this class session begins.
I am currently on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish people who were here since time immemorial. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, with Sam not being here, that changes things up a little bit. I wanted to go over some of the homework with them, but we can still use that homework without them. I just need to jump to the present. So I'm going to try to see if I can buy just a little more time with Sam's absence. I'm just scrolling to the content I have saved. for now, what I want to start with is, Cal, would you mind introducing yourself, please? Age, name, race, ancestry, pronouns, and trans experience?
Yes. I'm Cal. I am 34. Um, I guess I'm white. I'm not fully sure, but yes, I believe that is the origin of my ancestry. I'm so sorry, my memory is a little foggy.
That's okay.
What was
So
the
it was race and ancestry, if you knew any specific ancestry. And then it was your pronouns and your trans experience.
pronouns are he, they. Generally more leaning towards he. Trans experiences, I guess, living in this world as married with trans man. I don't want to take up too much space, so that's kind of
No,
where I leave that
that's
at.
okay. No, no. I mean, it's a conversation, right? The only reason I'm not making eye contact is I just have to navigate finding the homework I had or the teaching material I had.
Oh, no
Hello,
worries.
Noah. Okay. Thank you. So we'll start this way. I find it important to focus on you actually because being a peer of mine that's actually up in this area, we have a lot of work to do. And so part of that is conversing on how we see where we're at as a trans community and in these regards in terms of mobilizing. So, oh, Sam is here. Great. Okay, well, Sam, when you please can get up, please come up. Anyways, from how you've lived your life, in terms of navigating race, racism, and segregation within trans community, where would you pulse check trans community now?
I mean, unfortunately, I don't feel like we've made much of a stride in that area. I feel like, well, if the world wasn't what it was, yeah, we pushed forward to some degree, but it doesn't really feel like we have brought everybody with us, if that makes sense. I don't think the pulse is good. That's kind of my personal opinion. I see a lot of exclusion. I see a lot of othering. Even between all of us that are supposedly attempting this fight together, I don't really see the cohesion. And I see a lot of it is on, and anyway, people who look like these end. It's similar to, I guess, kind of like our phone conversation last night. Everything else, all of the centuries of the hellscape that is, I guess, the human condition, especially with the way that we behave towards one another. I don't know. I see people trying, but it definitely feels like there is a lack of care.
I like to ask you harder questions. May I?
Yes.
When is the last time you have actively challenged this phenomena? And when is the last time you have permitted this phenomena to continue?
I guess it was a very good question. It's hard to, I guess, put into words because, and maybe this is just the neurodiversity in me delineating, but like, I guess I would say, aspects of the job that I work kind of, I guess, force me into this position maybe a bit more commonly than not, since our job is centered around, I guess it's more of the trans aspect of it, but humanizing trans people to mental health care workers. That's what I do for a living, is introducing that. And I do try to make a strong effort that when I'm talking about that we are acknowledging that it is harder for people who have a much deeper melanation than I do in those spaces. I do very hard to try to keep in that part of my education. I think the last time I had a discussion with my students was last week on Tuesday, but I guess it would depend on your definition of like pushing up and kind of standing up. I would say, I think that I have still a lot of work to do. But I also, as like we talked about last night, like trying to, kind of put up what I feel like I believe in, and I do try very hard to acknowledge that I will never walk that route, but it doesn't mean that I can't get people to care about it. I try to do that in all of my exit interviews with all of my students, to talk about the ways that we don't understand each other and how we can understand each other, and that I guess in some ways we should be celebrating that we're different and coming together because we're different. But I would say, actively in person, I would say it's been a long time, but that's also because I work maybe from home. I have been a bit of a shut-in over this last year, and I could do better.
I have another hard question, if I may ask again. Do I have permission?
Yes.
So, I hear what you're expressing about in your online or screen-to-screen work, and that's the nature of your work. So I'm not discrediting that. I'm just saying that this is the medium that you're doing your work in. That you have, hey, if we're giving coins, please don't give them to any of us here. Please save them for Joker or Ren if either of them get here. Please, thank you. Sorry about that. When you are reminding people about the experience that melanated trans people have, and I'm asking, trusting I will get honesty, is it like a footnote in commentary as you're mentioning the larger trans topic, and then you just kind of footnote asterisk that real quick, slap on, and then move on? Or is it something that you actually take a length of time to explain in itself in a subjective and objective manner?
I would like to say that I do the latter of the two. Generally speaking, when I do have time to have meetings with my students, we talk about the concept of like resources and how you do need to study if you are going to be a clinician to somebody that is of a different walk of life than you, that offering resources isn't enough, that there is the concept of research, that you do have to understand what you're suggesting to people, that just because it's meant for one demographic doesn't mean it's meant for this specific person. I do try to build into this mindset that we have to talk about this. It usually is a length of time that I will try to go into the concepts of understanding that you're not going to always be the perfect person, and that it's okay to feel uncomfortable in conversations, and that you're going to feel uncomfortable in conversations, that the concept of speaking on something that you don't live without doing research is a huge misstep as a clinician or as a therapist or as a social worker, that you aren't going to ever understand somebody's walk of life that walks it differently than you, that the closest thing you could do is, in many ways, I guess, attempt to relate, but there is always going to be an inherent difference. Usually my goal with teaching is to get people to understand that we have to research and we have to listen to people, and that sometimes it is looking past. Sometimes, I guess, if somebody is coming to a clinician and they're upset, they're angry, and that clinician sees it as being like, wow, this person's like super mad. Okay, but, can you look past maybe the wording somebody's used and see the pain behind that? Can you see the history behind that? Do you know the history behind that? Do you have books in your library that teach you how your discomfort may be coming from a place that is predetermined or has been taught into you? It should be something that is discussed a lot more. I do attempt, especially in recent years, to give more of that center, and also acknowledge that, like, I can't speak for Black trans men. I can't speak for Indigenous trans men. I can't speak for those people, but I can sure as hell tell people that either look like me or my class or my students that it doesn't mean you can't try. And it doesn't mean that you can't educate yourself and figure out, how do I support this person who is in front of me right now in a way that doesn't silence them, but also does curate and give them the confidence to speak up for themselves, with you supporting them, with you being behind them. That matters. If you can't be behind your community in its entirety, then you're not there for your community. If you are not understanding everybody else's walk of life, then you are not doing your job. Like, that is our job as clinicians. That's our job as crisis counselors. That's our job as people working in the mental health field. If I am going to be a clinician for somebody that I don't live that life, then I sure as hell better be doing a lot of reading behind the scenes to at least attempt to try and figure that out. And I do make it a large point when I'm allowed to do stuff, because I'm not always allowed to do exit interviews with my students. It really depends on the person. But, like, my attempt is to bring up the fact that I'm kind of lucky to have the job I have, and that in many ways, I hope that the company I work for hires more of us in a more diverse way. And so far, they have been doing a fairly decent job of doing that. But, it's just, I don't know. I feel like my part is acknowledging that I will never understand it, but it doesn't mean that I can't do the work to know what is the appropriate, even resource to offer somebody.
Sam, can you come up, please? Pretty please. Sam is a white trans woman. Oh, I have my eyes again. Thank you. Can Sam come up? Sam. Yeah. Oh, you're not okay? Okay. I'm sorry to hear that, Sam. All right. Well, is there anyone that is not racialized, Black and Indigenous that's trans that can come up, please? It'd be very helpful for class. I can make do, but it would be a lot easier. If not, I'm holding what you said in just a moment, Cal. I'm just seeing what's available to me here in this space. Oh, it's so weird. I was paused for a moment, showing me something. Okay, well, that's kind of frustrating, but I will go around. So what I was going to ask Sam to discuss is with you and try and make conversation. And it doesn't have to be Sam. I just meant like the person I could call on. I don't mean to keep identifying Sam individually. Is what has to be done to translate an academic understanding. That would be helpful if you would, please. But I was going to have a conversation with two white trans people on how do you translate an experience, an academic understanding of a topic, or even just like a grazing, a reading of a topic, and how do you turn that into like an emotional, social understanding of the topic? Because largely what I was going to lead that to is what I have seen in the classes that's been held here is that even with an academic understanding, there's not a nervous system, emotional confidence or attachment to the content that one may have read. So having only a knowledge, and I use that word specifically, knowledge of something actually still permits quite a double think where you can have an intellectual knowing, but not a emotional one. But hi, would you please welcome yourself with your your race, your age, your race or ancestry, your pronouns, and your trans experience.
Hello. I'm 31 years old. My name is Holly. I am phenotype white is usually how people perceive me, but I am Romani and Irish. I live in Chicopee, Massachusetts, and my experience is that of a trans woman. Specifically, I always like to add that I am a trans woman in New England because trans women in New England have a much more privileged experience. So I always like to put that there because it does affect my entire existence and my experience as a trans person.
So a lot of what the work here is doing is trying to invite conversation, not only cross-racially, but within monoracially white trans people with each other. And so I'm curious about hearing from you two and your different experiences. And pause real quick on that thought. I'm probably in agreement, Pax, with Davina. It might be the symbols, but I'm only guessing. Like we have no clue how the AI works or anything for the background. For it
Yeah,
could
I'm
not
getting another
even
one.
be. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah,
Resuming
thank
thought.
you.
Yeah. So when we hear Cal's work and his desire, focus, I can't validate, I'm not denying either, but is at least his desire to emphasize these things academically. Um, how do you translate, both of you, how do you translate that understanding of race within trans experience and make it emotional for you? How do you make it emotional? Go ahead, you two.
Okay. If may I speak first, if that's okay?
Go ahead.
So for me, my trans experience started specifically in right when my transition started. I was in the drag scene, and the people who were there for me the most were Black and non-white trans women. So my experience then for doing drag for years as a main job and as a form of not just job but kind of like a lifeline into my community and to be a part of my community, I was constantly hyper aware of my whiteness in these spaces because those spaces are very heavily Black, like not only Black in culture but Black when it comes to music, the artists around. So for me, even after I left these spaces, I have to always remember that my experience was easier. My experience was always easier. And it comes from like the lived, not personally lived, but the watched lived empathy, like the watched lived lives of the trans women around me who were so much more into their transition, who were so much more confident, who had more life, being actively treated worse than me standing there 1 year in my transition and being treated better, just facing active, not just misogyny and racism, but trans misogyny and misogynoir consistently made it so when it came to I changed into started doing media analysis. When I do get to talk about queerness, I try to add emphasis onto the Black experience of queerness when it comes up, not only that, but the lack of representation, and also to point people in the direction of creators when I know that a topic is either too deep for me to discuss, that I personally just feel that the way I do content does have a line. Oh, yep.
Thank you. I want to keep it to the emotion, right? I'm asking how it made emotional. You were doing well at the beginning. I don't want to hear what you're doing. I just want to hear and focus in conversation about your emotional relationship to the topic and how you make this understanding emotional. And what I'm hearing from you is you perceived it openly. You experienced that benefit and you saw that harm personally. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. May I leave what you said here and move on to Cal?
Yes.
Okay. Cal, two questions. How do you what is it like hearing that this person, this woman, who's a completely different place than you, been in different places than you have been, what's it like hearing that someone who looks similar to you but is in a different area can have and see this experience as if it's uniform to this whole continent? What is that like?
When you say uniform, you compare. I understand.
I mean that this anti-blackness is wide. It is across all these regions of this vast, geographically wideningly different continent, and yet you're in hearing similar stories from people you've never met who look similar to you, but they're speaking of this benefit they received. just because they look similar to you and it's a completely different part of the country. What is that like to hear how far it's wide spanning it is? Like, what does that make you feel emotionally?
I mean, it's suffocating. It's heavy. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like the reality is, it's not even just across the states. This is a global issue. You know, this is far more spanning than, I guess, you know, the internet has told us that it is horrifyingly prevalent. You know, it's not just here, it's not just there. We can all be talking about the same experience. I was also in the drag industry. I've seen the same thing. How can I've done
One
dress?
moment. I'm so sorry. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Resume. We're just addressing a voice problem. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. But you know, being in many ways still a similar walk of life in Minnesota and in California. I've been in Arizona, I've done it in New York, and it is the same across the board. There are whole chats dedicated to why the fact that there are black drag kings that can't get work, even though their makeup is 10 times better than a lot of the other people that are around, that people will play it safe, that there are still burlesque communities where they continue to hire one single drag king or one single POC person, and that's an acceptable factor, even if those people are highly talented. And there will always be an argument, and it's just, it, you know, I don't know how else to describe it, and I hope that I'm not like offending anyone to say that, but it feels like being in a room full of toddlers sometimes. And you know, of everybody wants to. I think you put this very well at your talk yesterday. It's the Olympics that we play to justify, to make it make sense. And to me, I don't know, I guess it just makes me feel a little crazy, is how I would say it. It's destabilizing. It's weird to feel like you're walking around the world and you see not only what your demographic is doing, but you see the effect it has on people in real life, and to not feel anything for that seems sick. I don't know. This is something that, ironically, I was up for 2 more hours after our phone conversation last night, because it's just something that, I don't know, you feel in your chest, I guess is how I describe it. If you're asking me, like, how does it make me feel? It makes you want to lay in bed and stare at the wall all day long. It makes you feel paralyzed. You know, it makes everybody scared. And I think the problem is that a lot of us on this side of it don't have that experience of having to exist like that our entire lives. And I think that's something that people should sit with more. I mean, I guess usually when I'm looking at this and I'm seeing these things happen, that's the feeling that I'm trying to channel is, I don't have to go through this aspect. And if the aspects that I do have to go through are horrible, then what is it like for other people who have more things that make it more difficult for them? If I feel this level of dread and paralysis, then what is it like to put myself or attempt to even conceive of being in those shoes? And it's not. You can't, like you said at the very beginning of this, you can't compare or call back. You can only really speak to the experiences that you have. But if it's anything close to some of the loneliness and some of the helplessness that I have even felt with what I've experienced, you know, I have to imagine, okay, triple that, quadruple that, you know, these are the things that I feel like if I am not physically feeling the emotion, that I'm not connected. I don't want to intellectualize this, you know, in many ways. I have to do that for my job, but that's not the point here. You know, like, I feel devastated. I feel sad, because it feels like our entire childhood we were kind of fed almost a lie of like caring for other people is the most important thing, and that doesn't feel real. I don't know.
Is there anything else in what, sorry, dear, what would you like me to call you in conversation online? I don't know. Another. What would you like me to call you? You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's why. Sorry, I was unmuting myself. Holly is my name.
Okay, just call you Holly.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else, Call, that came out to you in what Holly said? All of what she said. Is there anything else that came up to you? Or was noteworthy for you?
I mean, I guess I would say that it's that we share these spaces. We're constantly there around each other, and it's like, I don't know how to put it. Like it's not that like I don't know, maybe it's that we just like treat each other like isolated incidences, or that it's not our problem. I think we talked about this the other day, the concept of almost in many ways the New York study of somebody pretending to be murdered in the street, and if they didn't point out somebody, that just happened, that occurs. You don't point to somebody and say, you're going to help me. Like I don't know, I guess it brings up a lot of sour memories sometimes of the drag scene, seeing people recoil and not help, seeing people flee when they could have done something to help somebody else, and they have more of the ability to flee. And like, and that's nothing on like what, Holly's experienced. Obviously, I'm not saying that you did that, but I don't know, being in the space, I don't know, it just feels like we have created so many abandonment issues. And that's what, I don't know, I can't help but hear the anger, hear the pain, and I don't know, it just makes me so sad. And want, like I said, and some of the reason I showed up last night was to want to do something. But it is bystanders. Like we said that. I wish in many ways when we talk about this stuff, and like I even hear that like the concept of being a bystander has become so normal, and maybe that's just because we have more prevalency in the internet. We're more aware of how much we all are bystanders. But I don't know. I guess that's in some ways like, I don't know if it's a self-centered issue to some degree. I don't know if it's a fear issue to some degree. I don't know if it's over intellectualizing, over knowledge, knowing too much or what, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we have this level of, I don't want to use the word cowardice, but it does.
Still listening.
That's okay. It does feel a bit like cowardice. And not like in a negative sense. It's more like it's hard in the human brain to fight that, I guess, animalistic instinct to want to, hold back or not know what to do or freeze. And that's a real thing. People freeze. But I don't know. It's hard to say when you're outside of the situation what you would do, because we like to believe the best of ourselves. We'd love to believe that we would be the person offering ourselves up in the trolley problem to save 5. But, I don't know if I'm rambling or if I make any sense, but.
I see that you are going, what I'm observing anyway, is that you're almost going back to an intellectualization. Like it's almost getting further away from your emotions the more you speak. But I'm going to bring up something, and I'm going to have a conversation with Holly, if Holly can, assuming she consents. And I want you to take this in for a moment, Call. Holly, here's something. I asked him specifically, is there anything else that you said that struck him, that that was it, like came up to him and you want to comment about? Which to me, I'm asking, what registered to hold, to vocalize? And what I didn't hear is something that you did emphasize, is that the most compassion and protection you experienced was from Black trans people. And I'd like you, Holly, to comment on that. What do you think about me noticing that lack of observation? And how do you feel about that lack of observation?
I feel like that's a very that is a very common thing that gets overlooked, is the compassion of Black trans women in not, I would say, yes, emphasize the drag community. And I would like to, if I can, just make a note. I did not specifically, will say, abandon my community. I was actually pushed out specifically by, unfortunately, white queer people who were very, very upset that I kept bringing up issues that specifically non-white queer people were facing. So I do just very much everything what you said, will say I still am very much close with my trans sisters in the drag community to this day. We are in constant contact to keep up, and it is something I would not that you accused me of abandoning. That is just a very, no, you're so good. That is just a very strong word as someone who, like, family was very, like, chosen family is very important. And Black trans women, because they have forever, since Black trans women have not just escaped slavery and then had to form their own homes, but then once they had to create ballroom spaces because trans pageants were not inclusive. They were actively pushing out Black trans women and forcing them to adhere to white beauty standards, so they created ballroom. And in the creation of ballroom, the people who stepped up the most were Black trans women to embrace young Black queer people who were homeless, who were pushed out. And this became a thing that I think, unfortunately, and I am not speaking for them, this is just something that I have heard in talks of, it feels sometimes like now it is an obligation. And it's something I saw as well as, yes, these like women are so loving and they're so caring and they're there to protect, but they're also there to be their own person. They are not your actual mother, and they are a person outside of that. And so often these women would face getting objectified in a mother like role. I like,
Mammy.
thank you. I didn't want to say that as a paper bag. And I into that role. So it, and then having to put that up consistently. And then when I would see my, like my, I call her my sister. There is an, like, I do not call all Black trans women my sisters. She is specifically, we have a sisterly bond, is someone who I would watch be so loving and so caring. And then anytime she put her foot down and stood up for herself, now she was aggressive. Now no one wants to work with her. Now she's difficult. She's great when she's bringing in people because people love her. She's great when she's there for you when you need someone to cry with or someone to drink with at the end of the night. But the moment she has a demand, the moment she would say, no, I am paid more my rate. I understand that you pay this much, but you booked me. I am going to be paid this. All of a sudden she's difficult, though it's in her writer. And I watched white trans women, and not just white trans women, but specifically actually white gay men, get this pass to be mean and aggressive. And I do want to use that word specifically because it is a word that is so weaponized for Black trans women. But the people who are the most aggressive in the drag scene are so often white gay men. So Black trans women have to put on this huge show of, you are a mother, you are independent, you are strong, you are everything, but you also down to earth. You have to be as humanly possible. You can't have a flaw. How dare you not be a perfect person for 5 seconds? And it was so devastating isn't even the word. Crushing. It was a crushing thing to watch. It was a crushing thing I was always proud to stick up for my friends and for my mothers and for my sisters. But it felt awful that this person with less life experience had to be the one that they listened to about giving these people and these women their right respect, their deserved everything. It is a hollowing experience to be a shield for people who deserve way more than you are given. And realizing that is not only like it should make you feel bad. It should make you feel bad. It crushes. And I don't want people, and I never ever want people to be like, oh, you feel bad? No, I should feel bad. It is a thing I should feel bad about. And it is a crushing thing to live with. And it is something I just have to and accept, and then use that to make sure that I give the same energy that these women have given me back to them now that they need it to whatever capacity I can. I'm also sorry if I ever ramble, please always tell me to shut up. I'm very much a ramble person, so.
But no, it's good. But I want to get back to specifically, you tried to answer it and then you shared examples. Thank you for sharing examples, but I'm talking about what we witnessed here. I'm talking specifically about observing that Carl did not comment on this, and yet
Okay.
I noted it was noteworthy. The
Okay.
difference between what he thinks is important to comment on hearing your previous story versus
Mhm.
what I think is noteworthy, and how do you feel about that?
Okay.
And what would you say to him?
Um, yeah, I would say I do think that that is a little. It is a little. I don't want to use upsetting, but I do want to say expected. I do feel very often um, queer men and queer white people in general, but especially queer men as a woman who's digested, and I just have a tendency to not think about the way that we mother Black trans women. And it is something that is noticeable. And it's something that I think queer men don't, especially white queer men, don't always notice, because I feel like a lot of white queer men expect mothering from the trans women, specifically the Black trans women around them. So I think it's something that's maybe not always noted, or maybe not always like something you think of inherently being something that could be problematic, or something that's expected, or something that's a stereotype. Um, so I would say I would say it's just something I didn't even quite process it, because it's something I'm also very used to, and I think that's my own my own privilege in the situation as well.
I would like you two to have a conversation about this for a time. I'd like to see what comes from it. Carl, if you would.
I guess yes. Number one, I'm not a queer man. I am a trans person. Um, you know, I guess I understand, and maybe I guess I didn't understand the question. I wasn't trying to say anybody was abandoning anything, but you know, if that's the way it came off, I apologize. You know, I was more speaking to the trans male experience and what I have seen. My experience is more with trans men. I don't have as much experience in that particular regard. We are not exactly accepted in, well, I would say mostly the POC trans men, but this is just like, I guess, feeling upset about not noticing that. I'm apologize. It's more, I don't do this. I'm not a live person. I didn't, honestly, it was a genuine, I just kind of forgot. But I apologize, you know, if that's the way that it came off, and I'm so sorry that I did not acknowledge that. But you know, this is something that is why I want to be a part of this movement. Is I want to learn, and I also want to be, in some ways, help facilitate the voice for trans men, because this isn't the first time that the assumption is that I am a cis queer man, and that presumptions is that, and I know that that is harder for the men that don't look like me. And I see it a lot, and I see the way that trans men are invalidated. I see the way that trans men are treated. I see the way that we are infantilized by people, and the way that I am told that I don't understand things. And I want to understand. I want to be in this space. I want to learn from this, but I have to figure out a way to, you know, sit with the discomfort. And like I said, you know, I inadvertently kind of realized that I implicated you, Holly, as being like abandonment, and it was a strong word, and I wish that I had picked a better word. You know, yes.
So let's just take a moment to breathe, and we'll make sure to address that in just a minute. Let's just breathe. We're going to do this 2 more times. We're going to go through the nose at your own pace. Mouth out. And 1 more time at your own pace. In. And then mouth out. When you're both ready, you'll show me a thumbs up after your 3 breaths. Okay, let's try this. So, thank you, Divina. Let me get to this though. So let's do a little bit of work here. So we all know this is a trans space, but what I'm hearing from Carl is a request to be more affirming that he's just as trans. So Holly, while you're trying to comment on how patriarchy plays out in queerness and queer spaces, what I'm imagining and trying to be in his shoes for a minute is that he's asking and trying to vocalize, hey, I'm not just vaguely queer. I am as trans as you. Please refer to me and acknowledge and speak of me or in a trans way, but also communally, right? Like if you're going to discuss queer men more widely, maybe in this case, like I'm hearing, or I'm assuming from what I'm hearing, a request of maybe saying cis and trans men. Like maybe if you're trying to talk about a phenomena you're observing in both, Holly, at least try to make sure they're separate so that there's not the clumping in which I'm imagining he's expressing being erased and thus obscuring his transness, which is just as trans as your transness. So that sounds like something he's trying to express. But on the other hand, what I want to provide Cal, is, I almost made you like Superman, Cal L. On the other hand, I'm noticing from an outside perspective a defensiveness. I'm asking for a lean in. We know and we hear that you're not used to lies. This is not a perfection. It's literally a learning space. And we need you. Like we need your work. We need your mind. We need you and we want you to be here. This isn't a purity test. This is an educational space. Like you said earlier, and we know just by the nature of being here, shit will get fucked up. Things are tending to happen. That's part of learning, right? So I want to ask you to sit. If I'm wrong, then please, correct me in a moment. But I'm noticing from the outside that defensiveness. And try to lean in on, even if you're forgetting something, and that's understandable. What I had a conversation with Holly is that, do I remember everything Holly said? No, I don't, because like Holly said, she likes to ramble. I'm just saying between what you and how you and I have lived, we will note different things of the story of what's presented to us, right? In the things that we will remember or will forget, right? And so that is what I was having conversation with. And then that's what Holly shared her opinion on as to what might have motivated you or someone in your position. And it is all a lot of assumptive work as to why I would note that emotional labor element. And then I did not hear from you that specific commentary on that specific thing. And that's where we're at now, right? Because right now, let me be more clear again. So what I'm doing is, this is the law of the work. The law of the work is there can be people who have an intellectual understanding, and there can even have had some emotional understanding, truly. But then what I do here is I wiggle, poof, and I see that little thing, and I'm like, okay, let's bring it out. And when we look at this neural pathway and pattern, like what is here we can analyze and look more. So what I'm doing is going boop, based on what is focused on or not focused on, and then I'm saying, let's examine that. And that's what I'm doing. But for the sake of growing and learning, because I need your help. You are very useful. You're also, your own safety matters too. This is not a place of perfection. So with that in mind, if there's anything else in terms of the subject, since I can't speak for you, in terms of the trans man thing you'd like to say to Holly, please feel free to comment on that. But afterward, would you please try to lean into what I'm also trying to express to hear from you about? Do you think that's within your breath right now?
Yeah, I think so. And like,
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that this comes from like like we said, like a non-combative place in an open place. I feel like some of the upset maybe that I'm experiencing is more on the end that I don't think trans men have a space. I don't think that trans men get talked about. I don't meet a whole lot of people that care to understand our walk of life. And that means that if I feel that, what does the other people around me feel? Especially the other trans men of color that are in my life, that aren't taken seriously, or who are treated as aggressive, as angry, as a danger, and the way that that affects their lives. And I guess I'm more speaking to the part that I can speak to, which is the trans part. I don't know a whole lot of people that I meet that know even what a single surgery is called for a trans man. I don't know a whole lot of people that know anything about any of the trans men that have done things either in our community or that have also been victims of violence. And I think it's that I'm angry about that. I'm angry that in the terms of the world, we just don't exist. We're just not there. We're just not thought of. And it's more of the fact that, maybe that's where the word abandoned came from, because I feel it within the community. I see it on the faces of my peers. I see the way that a lot of trans men in some ways almost punish themselves for wanting to be a man, and the way that people don't seem to want to be interested in understanding that aspect of it. And like there are aspects where I agree with you, Zara, that like there's still that discomfort, and that's something that I hope one day, as we all evolve as human beings, that will eventually go away. And like, I don't know, the whole goal I have is to learn how to sit in that discomfort and be able to have these conversations, and I guess not like explain in a way that makes it like, oh, this is justifying it. It's just that, I guess like you said, I'm trying to be more open, that I am angry that it's this wild concept that a pad party is not for trans men, that people getting period products, people can't conceive that trans men have periods, that trans men need health care. And if I struggle to access that and I watch other people have an even harder time to access that, I get upset. I get upset that I don't know what it is. The whole goal when I first started transitioning was to be perceived male. And I hate that now. I hate that concept. Because if anything, I identify more as trans, like it is a gender identity. Because I don't know. I see the way that trans men are turned away from queer spaces. I see the way that trans men are treated as aggressive or understanding or treated like cis men. And like in some ways, if that is their goal, that is their goal. But I don't know, sometimes I wish that we would talk more about trans men, and specifically Indigenous trans men and Indigenous Two-Spirit, as well as like Black and brown individuals that live in a trans masc experience. Because I do think it matters. It should matter. We're a whole half of the demographic, and it just doesn't feel like we exist.
May I ask you, I'm going to ask you, if I have your permission, I'd like to ask you a difficult question again. Do I have your consent?
Yeah.
Okay. And before I ask the question, Holly, I'm going to ask you after I'm done with this question, whatever his answer is, I'm going to be quiet. Holly, having a white to white trans conversation, I'm going to ask you, please, so I don't have to do it. Will you please do the emotional labor of connecting and trying to work through what he's presenting and discussing?
Absolutely.
I think that would be a good addition to this topic. So I'm not ignoring it, but I'm just saying, oh, here's this task, but I'm not going to do it. I'm handing it to Holly. But I'm going to add something that is going to possibly help in you two having a better conversation. And remember, this is a learning space. I'm asking candid questions because this is the shit we have to get through. Just like you want to say shit that you want your trans femmes peers to say. I have to say shit that I need to say to my white and non-black, non-indigenous trans peers and challenge them. And you're safe to answer candidly because this is a learning space. And again, we need you. We need your allyship. We need, and like as trans femme, but as a trans person, you're equal with me in terms of being trans. But I need your, as a white trans to black trans, I need your allyship. I need your companionship as a fellow trans person in the work we're doing. I wanted to clarify the language, so I'm not suggesting othering. When I brought up what I perceived as an overlooking or not having attachment to the labor of black trans women in queer spaces or gender variant spaces. And then when Holly responded to that observation, did that trigger you?
I guess in some ways I could say, yes. And I'm not sure if it's more because my experience is with trans men, and I don't know if that is where the defensiveness comes from, because in many ways we are very segregated, trans men and trans women, beyond maybe some dating here and there, there is not a whole lot of overlap. I don't feel like there is a lot of crossing even between that, quote unquote binary that we have.
Okay, so I'm not to interrupt. I do want to come from a little bit of my experience without, I will try not to ramble. I do come from my scene of queerness was very mixed trans. So we had a lot of specifically trans men performers, drag performers. My two drag kids were a non-binary trans masc and a trans man. And a drag king at that. So I am someone who, and I would apologize for you not identifying with the queer label and me summing. Also, very sorry if you guys hear anything. Someone is setting off fireworks down my street. Very sorry if you hear them. Just want to give a warning.
Is it okay if I respond?
Yeah. I just want to say, so I can understand, I do want to apologize for that. I do just think that there is sometimes an issue, and this is, trans women have a lot of issues, so I am not by all means saying that we're infallible. It's just something I've noticed, that a lot of trans men, when they are, white trans men especially, when they are given a showing of, hey, this is something that I also do see white trans men do. Sometimes white trans men will do the same defensiveness that I see white trans women do. Well, they'll go, well, but I'm trans. And we have to remember as white trans people that our transness is after whiteness. We are white trans. So and yes, your experience is very much that of a white trans man, and the exclusion of trans men in queer spaces is an issue, is a big, big issue. And it is something that I do think is important, and I do think affects trans men and does need to be talked about more. But it also doesn't negate the casual or like racism, microaggressions, or just aggressions that we might, as white queer people, as white trans people, but like as white trans people especially, behave. And I think something is like not noticing the black trans women in a community needing to be the ones to help people in community. In your mind, that not being something, it's more of just, it's something that a lot of us in the community expect. It is something that's always in the back of our mind, to kind of expect this labor, this emotional, this even sometimes physical labor to help other queer people. And I think that, and I do understand the defensiveness, but I think the defensiveness is a issue that is separate, and they are two separate conversations. We can both talk about how trans men deserve more recognition. We deserve to have more education on trans men, the same way that there is education on trans women. But we also need to address that white trans men will have the same casual racism as any other white person. And them being trans men doesn't take that away. And their lack of community and their lack of access to that also doesn't take away that you might still not realize that that exists. Does that make sense?
I mean, yes, it does, but I feel like maybe, I don't know if I'm just not conveying this correctly, because I was talking more kind of, I guess, more in foil to you of like, I'm not really, I mean, yes, I am talking about white trans men, but I was talking, I guess, more about like, in terms of the black trans men that do exist in these spaces. And, you know, from my side, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I also hear the minimization in it of hearing, you know, kind of the conversation of telling me, well, this is what I experienced in my own community. And that's great. And I love that your community was much more open and that you had a drag king as a drag child. That's fantastic. That's amazing. But that's not an experience that everybody has in every single city. And
I fully would say that I didn't. And I would also say that I think that it's less about the community.
Pause. One of the rules, again, because we must navigate people with different disability needs, is one at a time. You go back and you go forth, right? We need to be able to make space for people with either cognitive function or communication disability needs. And you go one at a time, please. Unless it is something truly egregious, right? Then we can interrupt that, and that is subjective because there's wiggle room. But nothing here has been egregious, so one at a time. So Holly, I'm going to ask you to just wait, and Carl, please resume what you were saying.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to say is, it feels like there's an incredible lack of care for black trans men, and that I agree with you that there is this high expectation within the trans and queer community that black trans women are supposed to be these mother figures and these power figures. And I'm just kind of trying to pose, and this is what I was trying to communicate, is that black trans men are also kind of seen as supposed to be these knights in armor, and they're supposed to be big, and we're supposed to be masculine, and we're, tough and whatever. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, from my side, is that it feels like we're talking in parallel to each other instead of connecting. And I appreciate that on your side of the community, it was better. And I'm more just trying to say that that's not the reality for a lot of communities. I have been in some that are just like yours, that have that great integration. That was something that I appreciated so much about Minneapolis. And it's something that I always thought in their queer community, they did better. Moving to Los Angeles, it was surprisingly far more delineated. It was far more people were separated. And that depends on the demographic. Again, everybody works in different things. Like in California, you could perform at 1,000 different bars, hundreds of miles away from each other. So San Francisco scene could be very different from the part of LA that I performed in, or it could be very different from the part of Minneapolis that I performed in. It really depended on the venue. And all I'm just trying to say is that, I want there to be a space where black trans men feel accepted and don't feel erased, because if I feel erased, I can't imagine what that feels like for them. I can't. And I'm just hoping to, I guess, be more of agreeing with you guys, but also saying, hey, these people exist too. And if I'm being pushed out, these people are even more pushed out from both sides of society. And I do think that that needs to be a part of the conversation. We need to talk about, why do we treat black trans women like mothers? Why do we treat black trans men like they're angry, or like they need to be dads, or they need to be far more, what's the word I'm looking for, perfect in the way that they communicate? Kind of like we talk about here, we want to talk candidly. What I'm saying is that I want to have people have the same understanding that we all experience different things in life, and that we can see beautiful things happen and we can create beautiful things, but that doesn't stop the ugly of the world. And I guess I'm more speaking to is I want there to be more attention to the ugly that has been given to Indigenous and Black trans men, because it feels like it matters to me. And exactly, we feel entitled to their labor on both sides. And I am more trying to say, I guess, more in tandem with you, that I agree. I don't like that Black trans women are treated that way. And we need to appreciate and respect those people who took care of us, if that was the reality of the situation, you know? Like you said, these people are the ones that took you in. And that very much was like my drag dad as well. You know, he took me in when I didn't know what the hell I was doing and floundering. And I will never not appreciate the things that he did for me. And I want that to be acknowledged. I want that to be more talked about. I think that the Black trans men and the Indigenous trans men and the trans men of color matter, and they should matter more. We should be inviting people more in. I want them to not be seen as aggressive and scary. I want us to be able to find that. And if it means that I have to sit in a bit of the discomfort of, you know, very much like what you guys are doing, or like, hey, I'm noticing that you didn't notice this. Hey, I'm noticing that you didn't notice that. I guess I'm kind of inviting it on the other side of, like, you know, as much as we're having these conversations, like, trans men have to be a part of it. And I guess that's more my goal in this voice is, you know, I can't speak to the Black trans man community. That's not my experience. But I can sit here and say that their voice should matter more.
I absolutely hear what you are saying, and I agree. As someone who worked in my community, trans men of color, Black trans men, Indigenous trans men are very underrepresented, because as much as trans men are underrepresented, Black trans people are the most underrepresented of our community, and when you're the most underrepresented of the most underrepresented, you have so little. But I think that where this lies is that is very important, but it was more you didn't notice. And it was more, I wanted to say, I was trying to bring awareness to this way that us as white, like LGBTQ people don't realize something. And sometimes we can then just get defensive because, again, it's something that can come at any age. It's a very, very baby LGBTQ thing. Like, not in a bad way, of where you are then faced with looking at all of the things you face, you know, and you've yet to fully embrace the intersectionality of that, because you're still, and I'm not saying that you specifically, this is more just a general statement. And sometimes when we are learning and when we're educating, things fall through the cracks because there is so much intersectionality when it comes to the experiences of trans men, trans women, Black trans women, Black trans men. Everything can intersect and also be so different that it sometimes makes the very detailed conversations hard to have. And I feel like that was one of those moments, but it is important to point out how masculinized, not in a positive way, I want to say that, because it is a weird wording, how masculinized Black trans men get almost overly, and they get turned into bodyguards. You know, Black trans men, Black and like non-white butches even face this, like, you are in a crowd, it is you that is going to do the protecting. You are also someone who is going to be othered because now you're a man, so now we're going to treat you crappy because now you are going to be treated as a Black man, and not just a Black man, but a Black trans man. And these are very, very, very real issues that don't get talked about enough and deserve to get talked about. But I don't think it does a service in trying to talk about them while addressing other issues of trans misogynoir specifically at times. And not that it's not an important conversation. I just think that, like, what Zara said, ification of Black trans women is a conversation that I feel like I have tried to have many times with a lot of white trans people. And it does kind of come back to this like, oh, well, there are these other trans people who don't get as much representation. And that sucks. It does. But like, we have to deal with the way that we view Black trans women while they are very often on the front lines, and not even by choice. They're pushed up there. They're forced up there. And it sometimes feels like when conversations like that happens, like as a white person, this is just something I notice. Black trans women and Black trans people in general do get, well, what about it a lot. And I think that these are two very important conversations that need to be had, but are so complex and deserve their own ness. But I also want to say that I am not a Black trans woman. I am not a Black trans man. So I cannot speak for the community. I can only speak for what I see as a white trans person. And it is when we do try to talk about these things, it seems like we then branch out until we need to talk about everything. And then it gets harder to have those specific conversations. When we could have them all, we just need to give them a little time in between.
Okay, I guess I just would pose the question then, because, you know, and maybe I'm misinterpreting this. Are trans men just not included in this conversation?
No, that wasn't what I was saying. What I was trying to say was we were specifically asking a question about the way that you didn't notice something pertaining specifically to Black trans women. And your initial instinct was then, instead of to maybe acknowledge that lack of view, it was to say, well, what about these trans men? And that is such an important conversation. I would love to have that, but that wasn't what was asked. It was, how do you, as a white trans man, not noticing this specific aspect of Black trans women needing to step up and do this thing? Like, how does that make you feel? And it felt very much like, well, what about this? You know? And I want to know, like, how does that make you feel that, like, it is in the drag community, as someone who has existed in it before, like, how does that make you feel that Black trans women are underrepresented, undershown, their culture is taken from them, and then they are then the mothers of everybody and given very little in return for it? And that was, I think, more of what we wanted, or what I would have liked to hear, but I can't speak for Zara.
Yeah, and that makes sense. You know, I guess maybe I misinterpreted that we were kind of having a conversation about the whole trans community, and I kind of maybe took that and applied it a little bit too, like generally, because I understand where you're coming from. And yeah, I guess, you know, it's something that I'm trying to work hard on, because most of my experiences with trans men is with sapphic individuals. And I guess I was coming up from where I guess felt in my place of kind of like we're talking about the erasure, you know, that was my knee-jerk reaction is it's my intention was not whataboutisms about trans men. It's that I know we're talking about these two things as, like, I guess in some ways separate conversations. And I think that's a valid perspective to have. And sometimes to me, I'm like, but we are a part of this conversation. It's not, you know, I guess I'm still kind of learning how, like, what is it about the whataboutisms? But, like, I guess I feel sad. I feel sad that it isn't the first thing that pinged in my brain. You know, I am sad that there is still that little bit of, I guess, internalized racism, or maybe it's sexism, maybe it's that, you know, maybe it is that, I guess, a little bit anger that, you know, I was saying is that, you know, I feel like trans men are so erased that it kind of feels like that's the knee-jerk reaction, is like, you know, notice them, without realizing, you know, that it is a specific question. And it is something that I feel very personal about. And I think, sometimes it is just that we are struggling with this gap of like, I see where you're coming from, and my brain can't help but, be, and maybe that is a whataboutism, but like, I want people to care about trans men. I desperately want that for the trans masc and trans male and binary community. And I kind of let it get in the way of answering a more specific question. But like, it's wrong. It's not great. It doesn't make me feel good that we are putting this level of pressure on one demographic that's so small. Sorry.
You don't have to apologize. It's just I'm going to finally come in. I have to admit, this makes me very uncomfortable because, well, now with Des, it's not longer the case, but prior, as the sole Black person actually in the conversation, I feel overlooked by the utility of other Black people as a concept who aren't even here. And so that is extremely unsettling for me because it implies that I don't think about the totality of my people, right? Like, to respond in the way that you're responding implies that my pro-Black politic does not give a shit about Black trans men. I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm talking about what is suggested and what is implied or innuendo or in between the lines. Just like we were talking about looking for neural pathways and drawing them out. Yes, you are having a conversation that was two white people, and you both participated earnestly, for which I'm thankful. However, I am still the catalyst that recognized the observation of what I perceive as a lack of observation on your part in this specific thing, Cal. And so while you were participating in a white-on-white conversation, it is still ultimately having the effect of the utility and concept and construct of Black people to overlook me. And that is extremely, extremely uncomfortable for me. I would strongly encourage you to think that, do you feel, I have to make sure I ask this in a way it's not a loaded question. Do you think, no, I'll phrase it, I won't even make it a question to avoid that. How this, for me as an observer, however, the instigator, it made me feel as if you believe and feel Black trans women don't think of all Black people. I find it strange, and yes, it is a judgment-oriented word, but it is. I'm feeling a very strong dissonance. I'm right now, so I do feel like whoa, a little bit. I find that there is a necessity to reflect on trying to have Black people conceptually invoked to a Black person that is also marginalized in this way that we're discussing. As someone who isn't Black, it's just, I'm trying to figure out how to express this more clearly. I would encourage you to have better trust with Black trans women, and I think Black trans women have done more than enough throughout society, time immemorial, that we care for all our peers, right? The heart of the mammy archetype, even playing out among Black trans women, is the fact that we are provisionary and thoughtful to sacrifice of others. And I don't like having my own history in a collective sense ignored by the utility of another Black population that's in marginalization with me. Yes. So I'm not sure how to progress this forward, but I think I'll invoke Des. Oh, Des is not on here. It's just Phoenix. For some reason, I thought Des was on the panel. So I still am actually the only Black person on the panel right now.
Des, if you can come up, that would be great.
But yeah, I'm actually. I must ask forgiveness because my ability to communicate this is shaken because it's this is very uncomfortable for me. But I'm curious if anyone else has. Oh, Des. Hi, Des. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hey, Fran.
Age, race, ancestry, pronouns, and trans experience.
Okay, so 43, Black, ethnicity is Afro-Indigenous, pronouns are he, they. What was the last one?
And what is your trans experience?
Oh, right. Long. No. So
Trans man, trans woman, non-binary, two-spirit, things like that. Like, how would
yeah,
you-
yeah. Trans mask and two-spirit.
Okay. I will get to Phoenix in a minute, Celeste. This needs to happen. So instead of me trying to go through it again, I would ask another. Well, hold on. Des, do you consent to navigating this conversation and thus, unfortunately, having to do some emotional labor?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
get on board. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you to please take a lead here to navigate the exchange that just happened between another and Cal, and I'm going to trust that they will also be earnest in representing what actually happened to the best of their ability. Please go. I'm a bit shaken.
So is someone else recounting the story then? Yeah. So I came in late to the end bits of what was just happening. I don't know if you want my thoughts on what I did catch first, or if you just want someone to share the story parts, because I don't know the whole story.
I mean, I'd like to know what you got from it. I'm trying to, I guess, learn.
Sure. I mean, this is why it might be prudent to have more information. But from what I caught, white people talking about Blackness and telling us how to do it right is part of paternalism, and thus racism, and very uncomfortable, right? So it's one thing to like talk about trans men and trans mass people having representation, on this and about this and in this, but when those that are not in the community start folding that in as a, hey, we need to talk about this, this is happening, this needs to be discussed, you're getting into paternalism, because it doesn't affect you, right? It's not your lived experience. Hey, Lisa. And so getting even what might be perceived as pointers on how to, air quotes, do it right or do it better is part of the problem. That's what I was getting from it. But I don't know if I missed things and if that's accurate?
I don't know. I'm kind of questioning everything I said because that wasn't what I was trying to say. That isn't, what I was trying to convey. I don't know. I guess in my brain I was trying to. I don't know. I guess versus
Yeah,
anarchy, everything impact over intent. I guess I came in with the mindset of I wanted. I feel like there's, I guess, space for trans men, and I did it in a misinterpreted way. I apologize if I, said this, I guess, in a confusing way. I wasn't what my intention was, for sure. But I'm sorry if that's exactly how it came off. That's not fair.
Yeah, I just want to add some context to this. I just always want to give everyone a chance to speak and not interrupt. But I do want to say that the conversation being had, just to add the context for Des, was Zara asked about time, about emotional labor and our empathy, and I am simplifying, of trans women and where that comes from and when do we have that. And I used my experience as someone who came out as trans in the drag scene. So the people who were always there for me were Black trans women, and they were mothering to me. They were like my sisters in my family, and we went on with this conversation. And that is when Zara asked if he noted anything that I said or there was anything to note. And she pointed out that he didn't note the mothering aspect of these Black trans women and this expectation. And then the conversation seemed to go into the exclusion of Black trans men, which is an important conversation. But when asked why he felt that he didn't notice this, it just kind of became a conversation about the lack of representation of Black trans men. And I want to make sure that I am getting all of this as straight as possible. Please, if anyone, correct me if I'm wrong about anything. Zara,
I'm going to bring up Davina, actually, to do a little bit of labor and re-explain it. So I'm going to interject here. So, Davina, if you could come up and maybe rehash that for them as well.
I would agree with what Davina's saying in the comments. Before we continue on, it would be good to check with Zara if this is a good time for that, based on impact. Yeah. All right. Alrighty.
And I'm more than happy to not continue, giving opinions. I'm here to learn, and I'm so sorry if I said something, or, well, obviously I did, like you guys are saying in the comments, and it wasn't my intention, but that's what happened, and that's the impact it had. I should be more conscientious, I guess, of staying on the topic. I apologize that I didn't stay on the topic, and I guess, well, not I guess, didn't give an adequate answer, whether my intention was or not, that's not what happened. I want to make it clear that, it is important, and I apologize to anybody if it came off as if I was deflecting or choosing to focus on something else.
Sarah, are you okay to move forward with this? I just want to make sure. I want to check on you.
This needs to happen. Please continue.
Okay. The if part of the apology, the impact has happened.
It's nervous stutter. I would like to acknowledge that. I did also say, I don't mean if. I did acknowledge that it was an impact. I just want to say that.
And the last sentence that you just said, it also stated if. Again, I'm not sure if you're aware of it. There was another if in that last portion. So bringing to your attention. So our impact is, again, this is a space for learning, for growing, and I mess up all the time, like all the time. So just putting that out there. We will be harmful. The impact was done. So if you are going to provide an apology, just apologizing for that impact, for what that action was for that impact, and not ifs, because the impact is not going to change.
Yeah, and I am sorry. I
Um,
if I don't know the right words, I am sorry. I'm not.
yeah. So I think I got it. So it's not, so it's an intersectionality, right? That's happening. The intersectionality of blackness and the intersectionality of being trans, and particularly at this point, a trans man and or mask. I'm uncertain of big air's pronouns. I didn't ask around, which I probably should do. But, until we get to that point, right? This is for fun. Davina got me here because this is literally what I'm talking about this week, right? Is the patriarchy in the rainbow, right? And how the topic being Black trans women, and the events going on and how things are going, and how that gets converted into white trans men, right? And how we're centering, right? We've literally internalized the patriarchy and are doing it in the rainbow, right? And so instead of, so just the way, Team Bear came about, right? And men are the ones feeling it's so hard to be a man right now. They're the ones feeling left out. We're doing it in the rainbow. That's what that was, right? Is femme presenting people. And I'll say that the twist for those of us that were assigned female at birth, right, is that we were preconditioned with that set of shit. And so the thing is, though, is that we have to detox that set of shit so we don't invert it when we actually can come out and embrace our masculinity. It's about that balance of healthy masculinity as well as being really mindful of the intersectionality of race. Because and I'll land here, one of the things I shared on today was racism is what I believe we need to face first, because it is the ism that folds in and wraps up all the rest of them in it, right? It is the complete dehumanization of African people, right? Racism is the vilification of everything African. So it's all of our humanity is erased, right? The sinister nature of patriarchy and all the other isms is that they're vilifying parts of your humanity, right? So when it comes to our gender expression, when it comes to our attraction, right, particularly in the rainbow, that's the part that's been dehumanized and made less than. And so then when you add the layers of being Black on top of that, you're just adding more to your parfait of social shit, right? So one of the things that gets okay, maybe I'm not landing yet, but I'll land here, I swear. One of the things that gets looked over a lot is how foundational, right, Black trans women particularly are to the rainbow community. And one of the, I believe, more sinister facets of rainbow culture is the appropriation of Black queer culture made accessible to all, right? And I think you won't see this anywhere more than you will see it in the drag community, right? So it's not that it's bad that when Black femme presenting people have the spoons to do the emotional labor, such as I'm doing right now, right? That we can have the spoons and do that. But it's another thing when we, without asking, without getting consent, without the acknowledgement of that labor, right? It slips into the racism because the mammying effect, right? Which was particularly teens that were often, for lack of a better way of saying it, descendants of the enslavers, right, were used to not only, air quotes, watch the kids, but then just be the emotional whipping child person for the entire family, right? So it's about the emotional dependence, the demand of labor, and then needing to factor in the intersectionality. And quite frankly, when we get into queer things and in the rainbow, it's always going to be a lot to unpack because it's always layers, right? It's always going to be the multifaceted. It's never just the one side, the one binary thing. Humans are a lot of things. And so unpacking and undoing means facing them. So, yeah. Having me up, by the way, to share and to break it down.
If I could just interject, I also would like to say, and I would never want to speak for Zara, I do think the issue that I do not want to say maybe, that was very minimizing to her her reality and her feelings right now, was minimizing because it suggested that she didn't have Black trans men in her mind, or it's not something that is cared about to her specifically, because the conversation we were trying to have pertained to Black trans women. But that doesn't mean that you like that question doesn't mean that Zara doesn't care, that it is secondary. And I think that us and whether it was what it was, and whether it was intended to, it did sound as if it was a Black trans men aren't thought about by someone who is actively talking about these hard issues and does think about that. So I do think that that is something that was the big catalyst for this, and the discomfort was that when Black trans women are trying to have conversations, from what I have seen, about issues that they face, it is very often met with that male, what about me? And even amongst other Black trans people, it does then minimize the voices of Black trans women. And yes, trans women are the most vigilant in our community, specifically white trans women, but it is trans women that people think about and see the most. That doesn't take away from the fact that Black trans women need to be able to be talked about specifically with everything that they have gone through. And I will agree also that it is the very thing, it is something that cis Black women also face, is this like, oh, well, we'll deal with like Black women's issues in feminism later. That can very often happen with trans issues when it comes to Black trans women. And it might not be the intent, because you are trying to give attention to other people who are even more marginalized amongst us. But intent doesn't always mean that you aren't going to do or say something that is harmful. And it does minimize the conversation around Black trans women and the mommying of them into culture, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to say that. It's something my mother would have slapped me on the hand for even getting close to saying. So I just don't want to.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the term of what it's called historically. So it's, but yeah, it's when you start to, so white people don't talk about Black things. It actually just boiled down to something that simple across any intersectional demographic, right? Because you're going to fuck up. I'm just gonna be really honest, right? Because I'm also autistic, so I don't do well with the subtleties and the politeness. I really suck at it, by the way. So it's if you're white, don't talk about the Black intersectionality. If you want to talk about how you feel as a white trans man, right, and that you feel left out, but this is where it's important to start asking yourself the question: when a Black trans woman is talking about Black trans women and the Black trans community issues, why are we jumping to centering white trans men, right? White trans issues. So it's just about the trying to heal and gain the understanding of the difference between when is good for you to share about your trans experience, which is valid and important. Just making sure that, I think you did say it at one point, but being mindful of the topic at hand, because the default setting for when you're triggered, and you have a lot of them, right? Because not only being assigned female at birth, but then becoming a trans man, right? You're going to have triggers that lie in both areas. And so just being mindful that what happens the most and that invalidation happens the most when an oppressor class, someone at the top of the hierarchy, gets triggered and moves to center themselves. And so that's the only thing, is that when you start to get into mixed company, right? When you start to being like the whole trans community, well, then you need to start being extra mindful about the Black trans community, because there are going to be areas of that venture that you don't understand, because there's an intersectional point that isn't yours. And that's okay. And that doesn't invalidate your experience or what you've had to go through. It just means about, your emotional maturity and checking when it's your time and your turn for being discussed. If that makes sense.
That's nice. I appreciate the education, and I apologize. I also was autistic, and I think I may have misinterpreted the nuance of the situation. It wasn't my intention, but that doesn't matter if it was my intention or not. I am sorry. It was not meant to, I guess, do what it did. But I apologize. That is what happened, and I will try to strive to do better in the future. I think, I'm really sorry. I really miss, the situation, and I don't know if that's, I don't know. I'm sorry, I misread the situation.
Go ahead, Sarah. Yeah.
Okay. So here is why I'm shaking. Cal, we need you. We need you really badly. You're one of the peers I have met up here from the States in the general area. I won't be more specific than that. In the general area, but particularly up in Canada from the States. You seem to share some understanding, clear, confident understanding, I should say, of the peril that we're in and the necessity to work together for survival. And these people that we're talking to right now, they're people that are trans in the United States. They need our help to survive. Now, granted, at different tiers of the meat grinder, but these people that are doing labor right now, they're at their various levels, but uniformly, they're at risk. As I made clear before, there was never an expectation for perfection. It is literally a learning space. But why this triggers the shit out of me so much is because, as I told you yesterday, I've already gone through this now multiple times. I even told you face to face that trying to address racism to my pale trans peers, your peers up here, and how much that shit has imploded, sabotaging any work we can do to protect these people. Even the ones that are talking to you right now, they're in the country. We are the privileged ones up in Canada. We got out. And if Des had not shown up, you would not have listened to me. You would have gone on to say, we're just erasing, we're just erasing, we're just erasing. That's why I stopped even talking, because I was just like, you know what? At least I'm going to just let the white trans lady take the heat. Because I know if I double down, you will pop off and go. If I didn't have Des, a trans man masculine, miraculously, conveniently show up, be the demographics that you're talking about. Because as you're saying, we're erasing them and implying that I'm not mindful of the rest of my Black peers, my siblings. It was going to take a Black, Indigenous, trans masculine to tell you what I'm saying. It terrifies me because I don't know if you're going to just run away later. Because last session, the session just before this one, I had a white Canadian, not from the US, but Canadian trans person who I met in person, who I tried to explain, right? And she got her ass handed to her because of her conduct. She then tells me, I'm not going to let my white fragility stop me from doing the homework. And then that bitch blocked me and fucking ran. So that bitch said, fuck you, I got mine, and fucking dashed. Because she came here and had, again, the demographics that are the marginalized trans people call her the fuck out. That once again, weren't even me. And yet she's going to turn it on me, block me, and run. And thus, leave Des, leave Holly, leave Phoenix, and the others in the States to fuck off and figure it out. And based on your behavior here, and then only time will tell. You can't say anything. I don't know if you're not going to do the same. I can't trust, so far, based on your conduct here, that you will grow through this and be vulnerable and then hold on and be politically radical. Dez's life is in danger. That is an individual. He is an individual fucking giving you emotional labor right now. And I'm worried you're going to take what he did and then you're going to project that onto me, like Misty, the white trans Canadian woman that's in this very city, and then fuck off. I'm panicking because I keep meeting trans people who are pale, who fled the country, who seemingly understand what's going to happen, seemingly understand the severity of what is happening, and seem to conceptually understand that you aren't the first target for it. But when it actually comes for growth, time for listening, time for humility. Again, if Des wasn't here, I truly believe. I don't know. I am assuming. I am absolutely correct. It is absolutely correct that I'm assuming. But I am having, based on your communication, I'm having a sense of that Des wasn't here to affirm what Holly was expressing and what I was expressing via Holly, that you would have fucked off and that we would have lost you, while insisting that we're the antagonists erasing you. You would have utilized Black and Indigenous trans men to oversee anything I'm fucking saying and trying to do, then insist I'm the antagonist and fuck off. Even with everything I read and said to you yesterday, even though trying to have a white ally to communicate to you, it would not have been enough because we needed a masculine in the room to communicate what we're fucking saying. How do you not see that as not misogyny? Like you are creating and perpetuating trans misogynoir while trying to talk about like it's not happening. That's literally in my speech that you listened to last night. I say it's happening and you reject it. We are all that we have. We are the sole responsible people up here in Canada who've been able to flee the United States to figure this shit out. And to once again almost see the collapse of another person from what I'm perceiving. Notice that most of the statements I'm making, I am clearly trying to state that is my assumption or external observation. I am not speaking from your internal truth. I don't want that lost and me being perceived as an angry black lady. It almost felt like we're about to lose you until Des came in. And that fucking scares me. Because why is it so conditional to get the support of pale trans peers who even talk about the phenomena and then still do it themselves? This is a nightmare escape I can't get away from. I'm literally trying, I told you even, like literally, we would have had a group, an organization, something made right now if I wasn't fucking black while trying to do the shit up here in Canada I'm doing. I can tell you that you say yes, and it frustrates you, and you're an educator, and then you still do it. That's how deep the shit goes. We can see that, but you weren't going to listen to us fucking greedy, selfish, stage-holding trans women. It required Des to communicate it. And that is what's making me flush. Do I really believe you had that antagonism, whatever? No. No. I'm speaking emotionally. I don't mean literally. Once again, clarifying, I don't mean literally. I don't mean literally that these are the thoughts in your mind. I don't mean literally that these are your intentions. I'm just saying the impact and the worries that it invokes and the anxieties it draws because of the severity of the stakes of which our siblings are in and the hurdles I've had to continuously face even when explaining to people and then they still partake. That is where I'm speaking from. And I land my plane. Cal, would you like to say anything?
I guess I don't know. That wasn't what I felt like I was trying to say at all. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just going to throw this out there, right? At least I'm going to speak for me personally, but it is a commonly felt thing, right? Is I don't need a sorry. In fact, I don't want them. Sorries are self-soothing and another attempt to get people to make you feel better about the thing that you're asking to be sorry for, right? So there's no need to do that. No. I'm saying that there's no need to do that, right? So like acknowledging the fuck up, and then reflecting on how it's a fuck up. So making sure that you understand, and then making a new behavior so that when the moment happens again, because it will, right? Will happen again. It's about being able to understand it so that you don't keep moving that way. It's about changing behavior and accountability. Because here's the thing, right, is that part of the superiority complex is just, it is not part of, it is conditioned and normalized, right? So that me just expressing my feelings as I want to, when I want to, is part of privilege. And I would say very specifically part of white privilege, right? Being able to emote whenever the emote comes to you. Everyone else doesn't have that right? And so the thing is that when you're hearing things, not taking a beat to sit in discomfort, to understand where your feelings are coming from before you express them, and making sure that what you're sharing and what you're being triggered by actually correlates with what's happening in a collective space, right, is part of emotional maturity, but it's also part of detoxing and healing a superiority complex. Because like that's not, no one else gets to do that. That's part of privilege, right? Obstacles that you're not facing for doing what is normal behavior, right? Like expressing oneself is healthy human behavior. But it's literally why we have a rainbow community, because part of our expression of who we are is not acceptable, right? Getting into being trans is not acceptable, right? But here's where being trans mask, being trans, a trans man, being aware that in the trans community, if we're just talking amongst trans people, right, we have patriarchal privilege in that instance. And our brain, due to conditioning and mindset and garbage, is going to default to just the regular invalidations, which, I mean, I'm sure you know people, right? The overt, which is the easiest to identify, right? Just feeling like you're superior to women, you can do what you want, they're disposable, you know, get a body count, all that dumb shit, right? And I've seen it all over. It's gross. But it's also when it comes to the covert, which is more of what this would fit in line with, right? Is microaggressions, is centering, is holding on to I'm the one that's being marginalized and deflected when patriarchy is at the top of the hierarchy. And that's actually part of Darvo within patriarchy, right? We've been filled with this shit. So it's about detoxing it. Because especially like, you know, when you're from AFAB to embrace and forced femininity to embracing who you are, your masculinity, and being a man, right? The first thing that's exposed to us from society is that this is what a man looks like. Well, that's patriarchy, right? You're not a man if you don't have facial hair. You're not a man if you don't have big calves, broad shoulders, all that dumb shit, right? And I think, I like to think that we as a community know better than most that that's horseshit, right? That all of these expressions are just attempts at making humanity fit into these boxes. But we are. So it's then just about being mindful of when you're in a oppressor class and we're talking in this dynamic, it's just remembering, I mean, not to sound like a dick, but remember your place, right? And so that you know that you aren't going to, because the default is hopefully to not harm people. And so when in doubt, shh. And when you have a thing to say, just hold it for a minute and sit with it and be like, look at what's happening. Look at the topic. Look at, what am I introducing to this conversation, right? Because that becomes important, right? Am I a part of that demographic? No. Well, then I should shut up and, do some more studying and shit first, So it's just about being mindful, about getting maturity, and it's also about not inserting yourself or centering yourself. So when you have feelings, and that doesn't invalidate your feelings, which is important. It just means that you need to sit with them and have a good time with them first before
No,
putting
I
it
don't
on the
disagree.
folks.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I guess I'm just confused. I don't know. I was being asked the questions, and I thought I was just answering questions. I don't do this for a living. I'm not a content creator. I was just invited last night. I'm so sorry. I should have, I guess, prepared more. I know the sorries don't matter, and I got to change the behavior and all of that. And I just, I don't know what happened. Everything went so south. Yeah.
If I may, say something as a white person, as a white trans person, I think one of the biggest things you can learn to help yourself become, as much as I'm fully aware of the optics of me saying anti-racist in the way of like as much as a white person can, is sometimes we feel a need to explain when we mess up. And trust me, I've messed up. How me and Zara actually got in touch with Zara calling me out for calling out racism towards Black trans women, but it's seeming not to be something I talked about enough. And I made videos explaining it, boosting Zara's content, and have even found a way to integrate queerness into my content in the way that I can. Not about me, just using it as an example.
I guess I'm just realizing maybe I'm not.
No, and it's not that you need to be a creator. What I would like to say is, what I think you can take from this, and as one white person to another, so I want to do a little bit of extra labor for everyone here, is accept, live in that not in a way of where you wallow, sit in that discomfort and just do better. Do not expect, do not wait for an I'm sorry or for something to take that weight off. Just And not even I'm sorry, it's a I will do better. I will do better is at times, and then actually doing better, more powerful than just saying I'm sorry or an explanation, because I could throw a rock and hit 50 I'm sorries. What I can't throw a rock and hit is 50 people who've actually grown from that I'm sorry. You know what I mean? So I think that that's one of the big things here is like adjusting kiss stuff. Sorry.
Okay. So I told you what I do. I told you that I look through the pathways of the mind because someone can understand an idea intellectually, they can read the books, they can even have some emotional development, but it's still there. What I did is I went in there, grabbed the neuron pattern, I pulled it, and then we looked at it. I told you that's what I did, even with the same gesture. I told you what I do, and that's what I did. Now, the problem is, I'm really fucking good at that. And it puts me at harm's risk because I happen to be the messenger that looks like this while doing it. I am very good at looking into some shit and going, oh, right there, phew, and grabbing it. And that's what I fucking did. So again, what was Holly talking about? That the work, emotional labor, Black trans women do is ignored. And then you say you're not a content creator. Bitch, I'm not either. What did I say yesterday at the speech? All my videos are just like, I'm falling apart. I'm desperate. Who's helping me? I'm not a content creator. Holly's a content creator. Holly makes videos and shit that are entertaining and like actual analysis and shit. I don't do that shit. This is what I do. This isn't even content though. I just happen to be on a platform where there's lots of content creators. But this is because I do the intellectual, social, psychosocial, emotional labor, which is then being perceived as like, I'm a by proxy of your suggestion here, I'm a content creator. It's like, no, I am putting myself at risk. I have the dire necessity of us being here in Canada, and thus we have that privilege. And I'm good at grabbing the thing, past the layers, past what people intellectually believe of themselves. It's even in my opening speech. That is because of how fucking smart I am and how analytical I can be. And like Des and any other Black person, because of what we've had to do to survive under you, right? Because of the terror and power you have. So many of us that are Black have to develop that ability. Some of us just have a more clear way of communicating it, but most of us, our survival, have that analysis. I'm just a skill. I'm just able to analyze it and then yoink socially into the consciousness and forefront. And that's what happened to you. And instead of appreciating and respecting and being marveled at my intelligence and the willingness of putting myself at risk to do this, and that I can actually do that, we need to have Des to speak. And now it's about being a content creator. It's not about these things. This is not content. This is a learning space. It just happens to be on a platform that has people like Holly, who is actually a content creator, right? But I am an amateur educator. I am just good at what I do. And it was, again, ignored. Do people get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get you.
I did my job. That's what I fucking did. And that's how we got here. Because no matter what you say to yourself, no matter what you've read, no matter what you even tell people when you're on the job, like my opening speech said, you still perpetuate it. And I found it. And I yeeted that shit right in front of your face. And thank God for Des being here. Otherwise, I would have just been an angry Black trans woman who does nothing but erase Black trans men, says the white trans man. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm literally talking about racism as a whole. How does that not involve Black trans men by proxy, like inherently?
because it goes because this is the whole thing, right? Is that we say, I mean, places say it all the time. I heard educators say it all the time, right? Is that the whole, like, if you help those at the very bottom of the hierarchies, all will then start to rise, right? So reaching for black trans women and solving their issues by proxy raises the rest, right? We don't need an extra special moment for black trans men. We actually don't, right? Because in that instance, right, focusing on black trans women will raise the thing because femininity is the most vilified. So this whole concept of feeling left out is about having been customized to being centered. And so when you don't feel that, then you will say things to redirect it, and that's how things get off topic, right? So that's why it's you don't need to be sorry. That's the whole point of spaces like this, is to bring out these behaviors and show them so that you see what you're doing so that you can change it. The problem is that most white people across demographics, across marginalized groups, especially, I would actually argue, will use their suffering in a different area as a deflection tactic and a reason to center. And that becomes one of the major problems when it comes to racism and intersectional marginalization, right? So, so it's just about the growth there, and getting growth here and realizing that you fuck up over here isn't an all or nothing, right? That's part of perfectionism. That's part of the superiority complex, which is also bullshit, right? So it's just about face the things, heal the things so you can correct the things, so you can actually like live and be the person that you want to be, right? And that you say you are. Because it's not about, there's no groveling, there's no profuse amount of sorries. It's, I guess it's Holly, nice to meet you guys. Hi, everybody, right? It's about just sitting with the discomfort, right? And then going back to what I shared before about reflecting on you, where it comes from, why, connecting to your feelings, because they matter, right? Your feelings are messages to you. The problem is that when you feel the right to center those feelings in spaces of large groups of people, especially when it's marginalized people more than are marginalized than yourself, right? That's part of the entitlement. And what I am coining as enslaver syndrome. So it is a mindset. That's what I educate on. I do psychological behavior, and I educate on how the isms fuck us up and how that collection of them has created conditioning so that we dehumanize, and we just devalue life as a whole, right? So that does start in us. And the thing is that if you're still operating in the conditioned comforts of society, you're going to be doing that shit. That's what you're going to be doing. Is if there's an aspect of your identity that is accepted in society and takes solace there, right? Like masculinity is the favored thing thanks to patriarchy, right? When it comes to that, it is not only for us to be extra mindful, right? To reverse the lazy, dumb fuckery of being a mediocre man, because that's what patriarchy has done to it all. So it's about actually stepping up and being a healthy human, and realizing that us stepping into that, calling out other masculinity when it is harmful, is how that begins to heal the things, which is also why it's all until it's none. So that's across the board. So just taking the discomfort, taking the free education, taking all of this information, and like Davina said, right, just like take notes, especially about how your body is feeling and responding, so that you can reflect on that shit later. Yes, Celeste, by all means, use the terms. It will be in my book, so you're welcome to quote me too.
And I want to add again, I am afraid because I'm still not reassured, nor can you reassure me here, that you won't fucking run for the hills. Because this literally happened last week with a different white trans person. Different way it played out, but nonetheless, me and my peers were objectified, dehumanized, had the behavior towards us in racial violence permitted, in the sense that, you know, white people just need to be educated better, then they won't be so horrifically violent towards us. And literally had to have other black and indigenous trans people call out that white trans person who's in this very fucking city we're in, and then off she goes fucking off.
If I could be permitted to speak, if I can,
Yes.
I do want to say that also there is an issue with, again, I kind of touched on it, but we really, as I would say binary trans people who, or at least trans people who present either hypermasculine or hyperfeminine in one way or the other, especially when we are have to acknowledge that there is this like extra layer of privilege where even if we feel at times, I have been pulled over 4 times. 4 times. How many tickets do you think I have ever gotten? None. Because I cried. One was a chaser and it was weird and it was very sexual harassing, but the other 2 tickets I got out of because I started to cry just naturally. I wasn't actively weaponizing my whiteness, but my whiteness was being weaponized in that sense. Well, yes, I was a trans woman whose ID has a pre-transition photo of me with my dead name, which is a doozy of a man's name. But I was still able to appear to these men as a crying white woman. So the same way that, yes, trans men go unlooked at the end of the day, white men, the same way white women, we have our issues that we do need to deal with that. And it is something to acknowledge and to look at and to remember to not be so, again, it's one of the first things to deconstruct is the realization that your transness will not automatically make it so you are no longer privileged as a white person. And when you are someone who is trans and binary and you look a specific way that's almost expected of you, you get a lot. You get a lot more handed to you. Like you and me, out of everyone here, probably have it, in a sense, socially, the easiest, maybe. You know what I mean? Like right now I look like a lump in glasses, but usually I'm 5'5". I am a 5'5" white woman in New England to most people. And that is my reality. And any type of like denial of that or inability to acknowledge that is just kind of hindering. And it might be something we don't inherently notice, but it's something that once you can notice it, you can't stop. It's like learning how to draw. It's like you might still kind of know how to do it, but the moment you as a white trans person stop acknowledging your whiteness, it will then be something that you don't acknowledge at all. Acknowledging it once or twice is fine, but you need to do it all the time. It is something that we as white trans people really do need to work on and work towards. And that's just genuine advice with care I give from one white person who actively unlearned a lot of racism and is still unlearning racism to you. So I hope I hope none of this is coming off as like mean or aggressive or me speaking for any group. This is just as a white person, how you can work on these things that are a factor of our lives.
Is Pac want to say
I can't
something?
tell if Pax is trying to do like a Obi-Wan like Jedi mind trick or like
Right.
raising their hand. Like because it
No, I
was
was
like the
raising my
start
hand.
of that, like
It was.
right? Like I could
No, I didn't want to like put it over
I was
my
right there with
face.
you. That was hilarious.
okay. Yeah.
Sorry. We're gonna be maybe typing in
Yes.
the chat next time.
Yes,
I
there'd be
just-
one.
Okay, that's funny.
Not the live you're looking for.
yeah, no kidding. I just want to start off by saying my name is Pax. I was assigned female at birth. I'm transmasculine, non-binary. I it took me a while to realize that I was now at the top of the level after being oppressed in my old life, and it's hard to get over that. But what I would suggest from you is first off, don't give up. Second of all, you might want to get a community of trans elders and find a trans masculine person or a trans man that you trust to help guide you in this, because we all need that. We all need um, a good parental type figure in our life, so that we can check each other. And I just want to continue to say, please don't give up. Um, I have been in these lives and I co host them. This is my platform, but these are Zara's lives. And I have learned so much, and I have been worked through so many different emotions. And it's good that you're working through them and that you're still here and you just didn't like leave. But I encourage you to come back, because your voice is needed, especially as transmasculine people. Your voice is very much needed in this to help protect people, the trans folks who are coming from the south, who are looking here. I was born in Canada, and folks black trans folks are dying. We're not first. We need to stand in front of them to help push them back, to make sure that they're not going to go in the meat grinder first, because our foot power is heavier than a lot of people's. You know, so we need to use whatever privilege that we have to help them. You know, and but we also really need to listen. I implore you to sit with what Zara has said and what Des has said in this, and sit with it and just reflect on it over the whole next week, and realize that even though we're trans masculine or trans men, that we have a lot of internal misogyny to unpack as well, and internal racism to unpack. It doesn't We're not immune from it.
We actually have all of it, all of the isms to unpack. So it's really, don't get overwhelmed. Like, you're going to take it as they come. It's a matter of, I think it was Pax that just said it, and Zara said it earlier too, I believe. Maybe even everybody might have said it, right? But it's about facing the things. It's about the accountability. It's about it being a learning space. And something that I emphasize in my stuff is that this is about healing. It's a healing process. It's not a checklist to be a performative goody two shoes ally, whatever the Instagram fuck people do these days, right? It's about understanding what Pax just said, what Zara has been, honestly, I believe, shouting for a very long time now, right? Is that there is an urgency to this. And while it is a lot of discomfort that you're going to be slipping and sliding down on, it is going to be, one, the path to your healing. Two, the path to what I like to think people are sincere about when they say, I want a world of harmony. We should have acceptance. No one should be oppressed or harmed for any reason. We should have the basic human rights that we need. And that is the world that we're striving for. Well, that can't happen if people aren't facing themselves and the system that's in them, right? Because there's this whole thing right now that white supremacy is doing, right? Where it's like, there's difference between interpersonal and systemic. And as a autistic person, I'm just like, how do you see that? Like that, and then it just dawned to me, it's like, that's how disconnected people are, right? People make the system, right? You believe and accept the ideology as reality, so you live it. And that's how this shit is, right? Like, white supremacy exists because white people actually believe themselves to be superior. It is a delusion and completely false, but it is completely conditioned and an accepted ideology, right? That's what makes it a cult. That's also what makes it harmful, right? But that's why detoxing, facing, going through to dismantle it, to heal it in you, and start there, because to me, it's the most aggravating thing, right? That white people, as soon as they start to get some of these talking points, they want to host a live, and they want to sensationalize, and they want to be the new crusader. And it's actually just about facing yourself and sharing the stories of what you've learned and facing yourself. Because that's how you build community. That's how you create the space to be able to do it. And as you're doing that, write it, whatever journaling fashion, according, like record keeping you want to do. I do videos personally, like I do my own little personal videos. Mark your progress so that you can see it. And then when you're in spaces where you're at the top of the hierarchy, right? So I go into trans women's spaces and shut the fuck up. That's what I do. For example, right? I have several spaces that I trust to be citing things. Quite frankly, all of them are Black women trans spaces. And I go and I listen. I don't need to talk. I don't need to center myself. If they ask me to share a thing, I will share things, right? But otherwise, I go and I listen. And so it's it's so important to listen to those that are the ones that are at the bottom of what we are profiting from because of society, right? So yeah, hit it, of course.
Thank you. I'm going to segue a little bit, but to reinforce this. Phoenix, are you still here with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Phoenix, here is my request. After you introduce yourself, which will be age, race, and ancestry, pronouns, and what your trans experience is, I want you to share the notes of what you observed from that video. I want you to tie it to what you observed today, and I want you to present this in a way that you're intending to educate Cal and the other white trans peers here to reinforce the experiences that you have seen Black trans women go through. Will you please do that?
Yeah, of course. I'm Phoenix. I'm a white 30-year-old trans woman with ancestry primarily. Like, I think the biggest chunk of my ancestry is Swedish, but I've also got Irish, French, and others. Scottish. English, unfortunately, but, like, forgive me. I mean, Swedish, unfortunately, too, but, like, forgive me for that one.
Pronouns?
Oh, yes, she, her. Sorry, she, that. But, and as far as my notes, I have a lot, because I wrote some on, like, very, like, specific comments, but I will share, like, the journal entry I made afterward on the whole experience, and then the general notes I have dispersed through, because otherwise we'd be here for a while. So for the journal entry on the experience, I felt frustrated to the point that a middling to neutral comment felt like a bottle of water handed to me in a desert, and a positive one in an oasis. I didn't realize how fragile white people were in general in a specific sense before doing this. Not even to have the wherewithal to answer a question that challenged their response, not even to the point of challenging their beliefs. It also brings up frustration within myself because I don't always feel that I could bridge the gap with white trans folks who have these, like, I feel like I would get frustrated to the point of, like, what's the point of even trying to change their mind if they're this far gone? Let's see. I was also angry at so many white trans people for being deaf to why, some of their beliefs or lack of consideration was harmful in general, but also coming from someone a part of the community, it is harmful too. I did feel hope, although in short supply. I did find hope in the white trans people who were willing to engage and learn, like to see that at least a handful of times. Also upset on an intellectual level because of the lack of logical thinking when it comes to putting forth the effort to comment and reply, but stop as soon as they feel too challenged. I also was distressed when fear was essentially weaponized to justify personal hopelessness. And that's pretty much the journal entry, and then I'll have to scroll down to find the general notes. I think I have like 3, and they're
Before
pretty
you
quick.
say that, let me help your sense of hope. All those people that were like, yeah, I'll do more, I don't have contact with them anymore. Or at least they haven't responded in a long time.
Fuck me.
Yeah. Okay, keep going though.
Yeah. Some of the comments to Boost could have been far better thought out, although the general comments typically are talking on the petition alone was my first general note while doing while going through them. Seeing more neutral boosts now, but the amount of people who stopped commenting after accountability was asked for and bolted is so ridiculous, and it's strange to me because improving as a person is as hard as you make it. General note on my feelings. I intellectualize my emotions most times, but this is frustrating, and it's making me lose more and more faith with my fellow white trans peers. It could not be any more egotistical and willfully ignorant. It makes me angry, and it could not be more shameful for them to act this way, intentionally, or internally or externally. I want white people, myself included, to actually do the work and be helpful to those who are dehumanized in the 2S LGBTQIA+, because this is not only shameful, but this kind of neglect could and does cost lives. That shouldn't even have to be mentioned for people to care, and the fact that this is mentioned and doesn't even move the needle for of some individuals' care is, as I said, shameful.
And what did you witness today?
So today, I noticed that there was a lack of consideration for you, and a lack of consideration for what you were doing, as well as some like downplaying of the like almost some like a downplaying of like the severity due to like talking as if it was like saying I'm not a content creator is like, this is just a space to learn and is a social space, and in those two things it's not about like being able to it's as much the skills as talking in person as any other like space. It does not have to do with content creation, and a live is different from content creation is different from, and this is more of a conversation, I think. And like,
I appreciate the lesson. I really do. I need to ask to pause. This is getting very overwhelming. I understand. I need to listen. I don't think I was as prepared as I should have been. I need to do some more homework, and I apologize that I've disappointed people. I need to do a lot of work. I am struggling with, I am feeling offensive. I am feeling overwhelmed. I do feel like I'm just kind of being talked at, and I understand why. I want to acknowledge that, but I need to take this and do some work. And I don't know. I I think I am more of a disappointing person than I anticipated, and I'm sorry that I have failed. And I know it's not sorry. I have failed. I am not doing this right. I don't think that maybe I am the right voice then, because I'm not able to, I guess, not center myself, and that's obviously not the point. And I see. I know. I understand. I understand that I'm centering. I I'm not. I I am. I need to do work.
What homework do you think that you need to do to prepare to be humanizing to the Black community?
I have no idea. I have no. I mean, I do have. I need to listen to people.
Right. And that's what we're doing right here. And it may feel like you're getting picked on. You're not. You're just doing work.
I do feel picked on,
And
though.
it's painful to do
It is
work.
painful. It is painful. This is very painful, and I'm so sorry. I shouldn't say I'm sorry. I don't know. This is.
Do you know why? Do you know why that I do this? That I do this?
Do you care
I
anyone?
do this, and right. But because I can, because I have the privilege to know, because no matter what is said here about me, it's not going to impact me the way that it's going to impact Zara, right? So we have, and the thing of it is I'm going to talk a little bit about myself here. I've got multiple sclerosis, and I don't talk about that here because it's irrelevant. Because if people see me stuttering and stammering and not being able to find the right words, that's okay. They're seeing me struggle. And people seeing you struggle is okay. It's okay for us to struggle. It's okay for people to see you struggle. It humanizes us, but it also humanizes them. And it does work for people down in the audience, and you need to be brave enough to stand up to do that, to be human enough to humanize Zara and to humanize everybody else. And it takes an intestinal fortitude to do it. And I understand that it's hard work. And sometimes it's embarrassing. And sometimes it feels like I'm getting yelled at. And sometimes I feel like I'm overwhelmed and I don't even understand what the assignment is until I sit down and I come back next week and I go, oh my God. And I look at the videos, and I'll share the link with you. If you'll follow me, I'll share the link with you, because I will download each and every one of these videos to YouTube so you can watch it. And you can sit with it, and you can look at the exact moment where we went, oh man, that's what it was. She was just simply asking for us to humanize her, to see her as a human being, to understand that maybe she does. We don't have to, she didn't have to say that she's including Black trans men, because we're looking at it from the white view, where maybe trans women don't include us as white people, but holy crap, we can't talk about anything other than our community. So we need to listen to that. And people need to see us struggle and learn. And it's okay. It's okay. It's not emasculating to struggle and learn and to be vulnerable. God, I cannot tell you how many times I've cried in front of Zara, on this live, in front of everybody here. And it's physically painful for me. Like, I can't even explain to you. I don't do it in my personal life because it hurts so much. But I will do it here without comment and without saying anything about it, because people need to see that. People need to see that we're doing the work. People need to see that we're emotional about it, and that it hurts, and sometimes it feels like we're being torn up, and that's okay. It's okay. You're okay. Better this environment as a learning environment than us harm somebody in prison. And Zara's doing so much work. And again, Zara, I want to thank you, but she's doing so much work, and it's painful for her. Like, we don't realize how dehumanizing we do as white people to Black folk.
And I think I need to
And
take more time to educate them. I need to take.
right, but you need to just listen and be here. And what I'm going to suggest is that you go into Black Lives. Don't say anything. Don't center yourself. Don't do anything. But go into any Black Life you can and just listen to them. But definitely, like, don't leave spaces like this. Show people, show other white people that we are brave enough to do the work, especially ones who are masculine presenting. We need to do that work. We need to be that vulnerable to show men that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's important as men to be vulnerable, to show up and to be uncomfortable. It's okay.
Hold on, Des wants to speak.
Go ahead, Des. Sorry.
No, you're fine. No, I was going to hear all the things that you're feeling in yourself right now, swirling around, is part of that superiority complex, right? So, like, being able to look at, hopefully, you will follow Pax so you can see and analyze your own words, because a lot of the conditioning is just going to come pouring forth when you get triggered, and you are, right? And so, good job in sticking around so that you can hear the things, because being triggered, you have to overcome that discomfort, right, of being activated into, because like the perfectionism is what you're holding on to, right? I'm a failure. I'm disappointing. I'm this bad person. And it's not about any of that. It's about understanding the reality that no human is perfect and we all cause harm. And people are like, no, but I'm a good person. I don't cause harm. That doesn't exist, right? That's the illusion of superiority, right? And it's reinforced in a lot of areas. You know, any kind of, quite frankly, any kind of religion that you have, being white, right? The patriarchy, right? This concept of I'm supposed to be this pinnacle understanding of this thing, and we've built our identity on it. And so what you're doing by detoxing, deconstructing, dismantling white supremacy and all the others, right? Patriarchy and the rest, is taking that out of what you've built your identity on and rebuilding who you are. So it is exhausting as fuck, right? And so here's the thing is that, right, Black people have to do that under the threat of being unalived constantly, right? And then when you start adding being femme presenting, being trans, right, being queer, being two-spirit, being indigenous, all these layers of forcing who you are into this funnel so that you have to. There is no breather, there is no relax, there is no time, right? And this concept of I am really going to be figuring out who I am and loving who I am, or I'm not going to be on this planet anymore, right? And the thing is that there are a lot of aspects that are like that, right? So like just being in the trans community and trans youth have a high rate of self-deleting. And that's in one area of one's humanity. Black people have to deal with that in all of the aspects of our humanity, plus the added parfait of the rest of our intersectionality. So that's why Pax was talking to you and saying, just sit in the discomfort, because the discomfort is detoxing. I know it doesn't feel like that right now, but it's detoxing the things that you've normalized as what is harmful as fine. And everyone has done it, right? Everyone has stuff that they have to detox, right? Because like Black people have to detox racism too, but it's anti-Blackness because there's no benefit for it in us. There's no feasible way for Black people to benefit from racism. But because of the torment and because of the indoctrination and the coupling of those things, we've still internalized it, which we internalize it, and it resolves in self-hate, which is why it comes back to we have to face the things or we don't want to be here. And not just don't want to be, but really can't feasibly be existing. So when you face it and realize it's not about you as a person getting rid of this concept of perfection, it frees you too. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be this ultra Superman hero, crusading around, saving everybody from all the things. Just face yourself and be detoxing those things and healing those parts of you. And that's how you'll have the spoons to, one, keep going for yourself, but also participate in helping the rest of the trans community not being unalived just everywhere we go. Sorry, I laugh and smile at inappropriate times. Coping mechanism. So, appreciate you.
Cal, I'm going to give you some parting words, and then I'm going to ask others to stay because I need some healing after this. But Cal, also make sure to check in with Pax and Des, assuming they both consent as trans masculines, and it seems like you really need to hear their voices, so I hope they will be available, or at least their lives. Remember, I think Des is hosting a live tomorrow, so maybe attend that. And don't worry, I won't be there, so you'll have space for me in that regard. But I need to leave with you with this. Look, let me film this. Look. I told you about it in my speech, but I want you to really see it. Do you see that dot right there? That's where my white babysitter almost killed me. Right there. Through the fucking skull. As a small child. I look at that every day on my face. With my gender dysphoria, with my anguish, with the denigration I face every day, pun intended. I've had to suffer this every day. That is my first childhood memory. Because out of the terror of my childhood epilepsy, it took a white boy pointing a gun at me to give me such a shock in life or death that I became conscious, even if fragmented. That was in my speech yesterday. This is not a power trip. This is not fun for me. This is desperation. Our people are in danger as trans people. And among that, people like Des need to be protected. And do I. And do the others in the chat who have our demographics. I have to face this every day, that dot. I have to remember every day that I am subhuman in white people's eyes. And I have to suffer this behavior all the time. And even when I'm giving everything and showing the deepest amount of affection and risk by trying to teach and educate, I am still treated as if I'm the threat, even though I have this fucking shit in my skull. On my forehead, rather, not my skull, because it would have killed me. So, Call, I hope you'll follow up with Trunkle Pax and Des. And I hope you'll take time to reflect. But you're up here. You're up here with me in Canada. You need to be available. You need to help each other, help ourselves and our community. Des needs that help. Others in the chat that are like us need that help. And this is the shit our queer, the ones that are most privileged that could have actually permitted this conversation, because it's permission. With the power dynamics in our in the queer community, it's permission. The rest of us, like Des, wanted to have this conversation for generations, but we weren't permitted because we got this. But usually through the skull. I just happened to be lucky enough that he wasn't close enough to have the bullet pierce in and through my brains. So I hope to be in contact with you soon. I hope to hear some reflections in your part. And when it's scheduled next week, I hope you'll show up. But for now, especially since it is time and I need to process some shit, I'm going to ask you to just take a few breaths. Keep note to anyone you want to communicate with here. They'll be open to communicate to you, I'm sure. And for now, please leave this life and have a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
Phoenix, What was that all like for you?
It was frustrating because I was just like you even set it up to be like go into like teaching and everything, and it wasn't like I even planned to like go beyond just setting up the foundation for the teaching, but also talk to him like directly. But like the thing is, it's like I wanted to like go through like what was said, like how I like what was harmful about it, and just like have a like foundational like understanding of where I was coming from and answer your question as well. And it was frustrating because I was like I wasn't even very far into talking about like what was happening in this live specifically. And it just seemed like I it it was frustrating because it had been mentioned that it will be uncomfortable. Like I can't imagine that they haven't experienced that type of discomfort having
He, he's a
like
trans
gone
man.
through
Yeah.
yeah, transitioning and like, you know, like deconstructed things before and everything. And that's part of what was frustrating, like the most frustrating about it. It's like they are not like I just due to like what I know about their experience, I know that type of feeling shouldn't be foreign to them. Him. I mean, I just use they them sometimes as like like I throw they them in for everyone, and it's not always the best because I don't mean to like, you know, misgender someone in that way, but you know what I mean.
Okay. Pax, what was that like for you?
Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute. Um, it was frustrating for me. Um,
Bye,
it
Des.
broke my heart watching you. Um, just seeing you in the background and watching you emote. As my friend, it was difficult for me to watch you be dehumanized and to watch somebody else center themselves. Um, while you were visibly showing so much pain, um, it was very difficult.
What's it like finally seeing more of what I'm talking about? Because the other people you've seen, they weren't Americans. Now you finally see an American trans person, the phenomenon I'm talking about, blocking what needs to get done. What is it like watching that?
Uh, it's frustrating, but it's also it makes me think, well, how much is that up in Canada as well? How much are white trans folks blocking black trans folks from having a voice, from having an expression, from helping folks? You know, it makes me embarrassed and more determined to work harder. In realizing that I need to be, I realize that I need to be a role model to men, but I need to be a bigger role model to trans men as well.
Thank you. Holly, I know we don't know each other, but I need you to extrapolate that in multitudes has been preventing me, and it has been me because my white peers won't do it publicly. Up here in Canada, us that are US based that fled up here, they won't do it publicly. So it has been me, not because I want to, but because the others won't. Prevent us from any cohesion. Holly, I know you don't know me, But in terms of the trans people that are your peers, I mean in all demographics. I'm just saying in total, the people that have managed to cross the border despite it getting tighter and harder, the ones that are up here from the States who should be the ones working, make sure you're safe, Phoenix is safe, Des is safe, just in case the United States can't be salvaged, right? You're looking at the movement right now. This is it. Me and Kate, and only now because of another interview or speech I had last night, a few people got added in, again, him being one. But this is the movement. Me and Kate Glosson, the Canadian trans activist. What the fuck do we do?
I have two things, and it's I don't know. It's something that, and I please interrupt. I'm not trying to center myself here, but this is unfortunately something that I have run into. Like, I had to stop myself from crying because I didn't want to throw some blabbering white girl into all of this, but like, this is the kind of conversation that I have tried to have as like a white person with my white peers my entire life as a queer person, because when I came out as gay, I was 12. I came out at 12. And I will say that I was very lucky where I grew up, where my mother was with a woman for most of my life. I had two moms, and she was a Mexican immigrant who was like, we are going to find this kid community. So I got to go to queer youth groups and things like that were predominantly, I was usually the only white person. So these talks about race are uncomfortable, but there's something that I have had to face since I was 12. So it's something that I have had to talk so much about. I would host drag shows, and I would always do what I called my sappy little speech, where I would say, I am so privileged to be a white trans woman with a platform where all of these hundreds of people are listening to me. I have this weekly show where I get to hire other queer people and give them a platform. Please let me take 2 minutes out of this 3-hour event that you guys get to enjoy every week, sometimes multiple times a week, to talk about this trans person's death, these legislations. I was screaming about trans genocide back in 2002 and 2003, and it ended up being a sit down with all white people. I am the only closest thing to not white there, and I look like this. Like, yes, I am Romani, and that is incredibly important to my life, my culture, my mother, but I am perceived outside of Massachusetts because Massachusetts has a high Romani population, but like on the internet, I'm white. But it was a bunch of white people, and this white gay man looked at me and said, if I wanted to talk politics, to go to City Hall at a queer bar during drag shows. So this was something that I was just so tired of. And honestly, I felt coming into this, like maybe I would finally get to have conversations with another white queer person openly, not me sitting with another white queer person needing to explain casual racism to them or digest that, but an actual conversation. And it just turned into, well, what about, no, I want to talk about the way Black trans women are treated, because I had to watch my Black trans sisters get belligerently treated like shit, treated absolutely like shit, while I, yes, faced my bullshit. Never going to say that I didn't have to face transphobia, but I compared to what they had to go through, got to skate through my experience of my transition socially. And I want to finally be able to talk to another white queer person, or white trans person. Sorry, I don't mean to keep identifying them as queer. I just, as like a community. And it's this, well, what about Black? Okay, then let's talk about Black trans men. But I had a feeling that if we did, the conversation then wouldn't have gone anywhere. It felt like it was just an excuse to block off accountability for misogynoir. towards like, and this inability to see something. And that just feels like it's this double weaponization of another marginalized group who wasn't here at the time to say anything. It was just upsetting. It was, and again, I'm not trying to center my feelings. This is just a very candid way of, I feel very frustrated because this is a type of frustration I have felt for years, and I cannot imagine what you are feeling, Zara. And I just want to say, like, I give you so much credit, and I just want to say that I know it means nothing. God, like, some white bitch telling you that you're doing a good job does mean nothing, but I just want to say that your backbone is one of the strongest I think I have ever seen in a really long time when it comes to people, and your ability, like, I can't imagine the frustration you feel, because I feel frustrated, and I can't fathom it. I can't fathom it. It is eldritch amounts of unable to understand the frustration that you are feeling right now. And all I can say is I'm so sorry. I am so sorry about all of that.
But do you see that this is at the cost of you and everyone else, like you in the States? Like, this is the pool of people I'm working with up here in Canada who managed to get up here first.
It sucks because we don't have, like, I look around, and in my local queer community, there is nothing helping people to get out. It's not get out. It's hustle in, which is important. I do want to, I am, again, always lucky that I live in Chicopee, Massachusetts, which is close to Northampton. And I don't know if anyone here knows anything about Northampton, Massachusetts, but it is considered actually the lesbian capital of the United States, of sometimes even jokingly called the world. So I live in a very queer, safe area. But unfortunately, because of that, people aren't considered with leaving. They're considered with, oh, well, we have sanctuary cities. We have all this safety. And then you have, I'm like, yeah, they're actively trying to label us as having mental disorders. And then they're criminalizing people who are disabled. This is a ladder that they're climbing. They're trying to put us in institutions, and you're all saying, oh, well, let's just get together. Like, it'll be fine. Let's go to the rec center and party. Let's go to the local gay bar and have another drinking party. I'm like, no, can we talk? Can we have a conversation that doesn't involve how, like, Queen Servy you are today, Mark? Sorry. I'm sorry. I know I'm rambling. I'm also feeling just frustrated by all this, and a little bit, not in a, but like triggered by all of this in a way of where I have just been sent back to things that I had to remove from my life because it made me not want to live a life for a second. So I'm very sorry. I'm really not trying to center myself. This is just a lot all at once, not because of you guys, and not in a lot of where I want to leave, but a lot of where it's just a lot in my brain. And I'm sorry.
Do you have an Instagram?
I do. It is a private one.
Okay. I'm only bringing it up for a specific reason. The only reason I'm bringing that up is because I just did the speech that I did at Pride that I was invited to last night, and it was recorded on a Instagram live. And I was hoping if you could share it, because it goes over narratively, like, some of my own life, but Impacts can attest to the speech. But it also goes over, like, where we're at with what's going on in the States, what's going on in Canada, and, like, our need to act. And, like, having more places propagate it would be helpful. It's an Instagram thing. That's what I'm saying.
So
if not you, if you know someone else that might do it or something, just be like, look at this link and watch the speech.
I will. If you can link it to me on here, I'll take it to my Instagram, and I'm still in contact with a few people from my community who still do some community work, and I'll send it to them and ask them to share it around.
Okay. Otherwise, we're over time. Thank you. I just need to talk a little bit longer because I feel awful. And thank you everyone for attending. We don't do this exactly week to the day. It's like we kind of figure out somewhere vaguely at the end of the week when we do this. We will keep doing this because it's necessary, and holy shit, we need to do it very quickly. because we need to be politically cohesive and rapidly in order to protect ourselves as trans people. And hopefully everyone saw today and was learning as to why, as trans people, for trans people, by trans people, why we must address racism. It is genuinely impeding us from coalition building within Canada and the United States, of course, the world abroad, but our conversation is contextual to the United States and Canada. That's why I say that. And for our own very lives as trans people, we can't kick the can anymore. Those that had the power and privilege to ensure that those conversations weren't permitted to happen have won and had their way. Of course, one is very short-term sighted. So they won in terms of being comfortable for more generations and maintaining the segregation that we have. But in the long run, what they have done is they've de-radicalized the queer movement, and they've destroyed our resiliency as queer people for being able to work as a bloc to protect ourselves politically and socioeconomically. And here we are. So the can has been kicked to the point it is exploded, and now we have to deal with that. And so that means we have to clean up the mess rapidly and build what hasn't been built before. So thank you very much for everyone attending. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave now. Bye.
I'm going to be around on Discord if anybody needs to unpack, and you can give me shoot me a message, and I will be happy to unpack with you and spend some time with you. Thank you, Zara, for coming out. You are fantastic. Thank you for doing all the work that you do. And thank you to all the people watching. To remind you again, write down, I'm going to stay on just a half a second longer, so you can write down the mutual aids in the background so that these folks need help. They're vulnerable folks who could use assistance. Please, if you have it available, please, even $5, $2, anything will help. Please consider giving this up. Love you, Celeste. Thank you so much on the back end for all of your help. I couldn't do it without you guys. Celeste, you are an amazing person. Thank you. They are really a great person. Give Celeste a follow. Consider helping out wherever you can, folks. I would invite everybody to work hard, and we need to remember as a community that we need to stick together to unpack our stuff and to move forward and protect each other. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.